Chapter 472. The incomparably tyrannical runes followed him like a shadow, forcing Mu Yu to have nowhere to hide. No matter how fast he teleported, the opponent's runes would always be able to catch up to him. He knew that running like this wasn't a solution at all. Sooner or later, his spiritual energy would be exhausted. He had to counterattack. In an instant, the runes around Mu Yu became illusory, faintly discernible. It was as if a layer of water was draped over him, mysterious and full of mysteries. As Mu Yu crossed his hands, 9 complicated inscriptions had already appeared and merged into the runes around him. Then his entire body became as light as a feather, floating up. He raised his hand high, and a sword chi slashed towards Chi Kaming. The terrifying sword chi of a shadow sword seemed to tear apart the void. It was mixed with an incomparably powerful aura, shattering Chi Kaming's runes. Chi Kaming's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. Obviously, he didn't expect Mu Yu to shatter his runes just by being in the out-of-body stage. The power of Mu Yu's swordsmanship was far beyond his imagination. Chi Kaming snorted, because even Ling Zheng, who was in the 9th celestial layer of out-of-body stage, had died in the hands of Mu Yu. He didn't have any intention of underestimating Mu Yu. He became more cautious in his heart. He had to find a way to restrain Mu Yu's runes. Rune Shadow Mountain River Diagram. A yellow talisman paper floated out of Chi Kaming's hand. This talisman paper was very strange because it was rolled up from both ends. It looked more like a picture. The talisman paper grew in the wind, and in the blink of an eye, it became 10 feet long. Immediately after, the talisman paper unfolded and a yellow light shot out. It gradually revealed a mountain-river diagram, which enveloped Mu Yu. A cold light flashed. Mu Yu couldn't teleport away and was instantly sucked into the mountain-river diagram. Chi Kaming also disappeared and entered the mountain-river diagram. Mu Yu only saw a flash in front of his eyes, and he was already on a hillside. 2 rows of lush trees were gently swaying, and at the foot of the hill was a wandering river. The chaotic scene of the Array faction's massacre had already disappeared and was replaced by tranquility. Under the tranquility, there was a great killing intent. In my talisman technique, everything here is under my control, including you. Chi Kaming's cold voice came from the 2 rows of trees and echoed in the air for a long time. This kind of talisman technique was like an independent enchantment that brought the opponent into one's home field and used one's own talisman technique to destroy the opponent. Chi Kaming was very cautious. He knew that Mu Yu was not a normal Xiantian array master, so he used his strongest talisman technique from the beginning, not giving Mu Yu any chance to escape. The crisp chirping of birds could be heard from afar. There were a few white clouds in the sky, and the chirping of cicadas and insects could be heard in the forest. Mu Yu's location seemed to be on a slope. The ground was uneven, and there was a tall rock in the distance. There was even a gentle breeze brushing past him. Mu Yu always felt that there was an endless amount of danger lurking around, but he couldn't tell where the danger was hiding. He took a step forward. Suddenly, the ground caved in, and countless arrows shot out from the ground. The talisman patterns melted on the arrows, and a terrifying aura instantly exploded towards Mu Yu. Mu Yu wanted to teleport upwards, but he quickly realized that he couldn't find the direction to teleport in this space. He had just used the Big Dipper constellation formation, and when he came back to his senses, he was still standing in the same place. Brat, do you think you can move freely in a mountain-river diagram? You are too naive. Chi Kaming's figure landed on the tall rock in front of Mu Yu and looked down at Mu Yu. Mountain-river diagram formation technique? Mu Yu vaguely heard of this kind of formation technique. He had entered a painting, which was equivalent to being confined to a piece of paper. On the paper, he could only move left and right, and couldn't move towards the sky or the ground. Mu Yu's Big Dipper constellation formation was comparable to shattering the void, or even better. He could freely control the direction of teleportation, which was very difficult to deal with. This was also the reason why Chi Kaming brought him into this talisman technique. In this space, Mu Yu would lose control of his direction and couldn't use the Big Dipper constellation formation to teleport. He couldn't even fly. At this moment, the powerful arrows whistled and approached. Muyu had no choice but to lay down the formation patterns. The close yet worlds apart formation wrapped around him, but his expression quickly changed again. This was because the close yet worlds apart formation couldn't block the arrows flying towards him. Close yet worlds apart was an array that could change the distance of space, just like the Big Dipper constellation formation. However, on a painting that only had length and width, any formation technique that involved height was already ineffective. Those arrows seemed to fly from below, but in fact they came from behind. Ding! Muyu's hard sword rushed out from behind Mu Ling in time. The powerful sword aura swept out and blocked all the arrows, but the tyrannical impact still shook Muyu's chest and made him feel very uncomfortable. There were more arrows flying from all directions, trying to penetrate Muyu with lightning speed. Muyu's close yet worlds apart formation technique had not been removed. He quickly realized that his close yet worlds apart formation couldn't block the arrows under his feet, but could block the arrows coming from all directions. This also meant that as long as he didn't try to use close yet worlds apart to deal with the arrows coming from above, he could still use it. By the same logic, the Big Dipper constellation formation could also be used, but the position of teleportation couldn't be off the ground. Once it was off the ground, by even a millimeter, this formation technique would be ineffective. However, when he wanted to teleport to a stone slab at the side, he still couldn't do it. The surrounding position was not real, and it was all used to confuse him. He didn't know where the ground was, and this was also the predicament that Muyu was currently in. His formation technique was greatly limited. Chi Kaming stood on the stone slab, and he didn't want to move at all. He just controlled countless arrows to attack Muyu. In his domain, the direction of the arrows was indefinite, as if they weren't restricted by the painting. However, Muyu thought of something. After he was sucked in by the talisman technique, Chi Kaming didn't put away the painting, but followed him in. This meant that once the talisman technique was used, it couldn't be disturbed by the outside world. Otherwise, Chi Kaming could have put away the painting and trapped Muyu in the painting forever instead of following him in. Since he followed in and was also in the same painting, then he must be limited by the concept of length and width in the painting. Then, how could those arrows come from above and below? Unless it's an illusion. Muyu carefully calculated. He remembered that some superb painters could draw a three-dimensional picture. This was mainly by using visual differences to create illusions in people's eyes. Then, Chi Kaming's formation technique must have used some kind of dislocation method to make Muyu mistakenly think that those arrows came from below his feet. Chi Kaming stood on a high stone slab and seemed to be looking down at Muyu. However, Muyu knew that Chi Kaming was actually standing at the same height as him. Because he couldn't fly, this was an illusion. Perhaps the existence of these trees and slopes was to create an illusion, so that Muyu couldn't find the most basic ground. As long as he found the basic ground and teleported along the ground, Muyu could accurately use his Big Dipper constellation formation. This talisman technique is really mysterious. Muyu couldn't help but sigh, using the illusion and space restrictions to the greatest extent to confuse the opponent's senses and restrict the opponent's performance. If the opponent didn't discover the hidden secret, it was impossible to move freely in the painting. However, Muyu's greatest strength lay in his deduction ability. He was able to deduce the complex rules of the heavenly stairway of the Array Palace, and then use a special method to ascend to the Array Palace in the shortest time and with the least number of steps. This was enough to show that his talent in the art of arrays was extremely high. Talisman techniques were actually born out of formation techniques, but in a different form. They also used the 8 trigrams principle. Chi Kaming's talisman technique sealed the real trees and arranged them in a special position, creating a visual difference. It made Muyu think that he was on a slope, and even made Muyu feel that Chi Kaming was standing on a higher ground than him. However, all of this was just an illusion. Then I need to find out where the basic ground of your painting is. Muyu stared at Chi Kaming. Chi Kaming's hand formed another seal, and the surrounding trees suddenly trembled. Countless arrows with sharp formation markings swept towards Muyu. The spirit Qi in the forest seemed to be restless. Following that, the formation markings in the air began to transform into a vortex, and countless arrows shot out from the vortex. Muyu's eyes flickered with mysterious black and white formation markings. Under the observation of the formation markings in his eyes, the trajectory of all the arrows seemed to have changed. He began to deduce the direction of the arrows in his mind. Under Muyu's deduction, he quickly found the direction of the arrows. In fact, the arrows in the air did not come from the air, but from the front, back, left, and right of Muyu, using the light and trees to create an illusion. Qi Kaming was very confident in his talisman technique because he was a Xiantian talisman master at the spirit severing stage, and his strength was stronger than Muyu. In addition, this formation technique was very mysterious. He created it by combining the talisman techniques of previous talisman masters, so he thought that it was more than enough to trap and kill Muyu. Although the lethality of those arrows did not reach the level of a spirit severing stage attack, these arrows were powerful in that they were impossible to guard against. The opponent clearly saw an arrow flying from the top of his head, but in fact its position was behind him or in the front left. Even if a spirit severing stage formation master entered this talisman technique, if he was not careful, he would be pierced by thousands of arrows and die. Muyu looked at the arrows flying in all directions. His so close, yet worlds apart, could not completely block so many fierce rune arrows. Although the power did not reach the spirit severing stage, once the number increased, it would create a great pressure on Muyu and break through his so close, yet worlds apart. But his heart was empty, and all the arrows were so clear in his eyes. According to his estimation, there were over 200 runic arrows above his head, over 100 in the large crater beneath his feet, and over 1,000 arrows to his left, while there were 400 to 500 arrows in each of the other three directions. He did not fly, nor did he teleport. Suddenly, he made a very strange movement and ran straight to the front left where the arrows were the most. I thought you were a genius. There is a road to heaven, but you don't take it, and there is no door to hell, but you rush in. You are simply courting death. Qi Kaming sneered. The rune arrows in front of him were the most realistic. Under his control, the might of these arrows was quite formidable. They were not something that Muyu so close, yet worlds apart, could block. However, Muyu suddenly made a sharp turn and rushed towards the arrow on her right. Humph! Still want to play hide and seek? Qi Kaming's hand surged with dazzling runes, like the growth rings of a tree. The countless rune arrows in the front left turned and continued to chase after Muyu. In his talisman technique, he was in control of all the rune arrows. As long as Muyu moved, all the rune arrows would move with him. Muyu's breath had been firmly locked by him. If he could not use his space formation technique here, he would not be able to escape. Qi Kaming had been paying attention to Muyu's running movements, but he did not notice that with every step Muyu took, an inconspicuous rune would overflow and merge into the ground. With every step, a rune would appear. When he lifted his foot, the rune would disappear as if nothing had happened. Chapter 473. Qi Kaming was one of the strongest opponents Muyu had ever fought. He had fought with the alchemist Shi Dengtian, Xiang Ma of the Yin Corpse Formation, and even Tian Buyo, who was ranked higher than Ling Zhong. As an alchemist, Shi Dengtian's combat ability was very low. Muyu had relied on Xiao Shuai's help and Mu Ling's restraining ability to win against Xiang Ma. When Tian Buyo was in the valley, he had no intention of killing him immediately. But Qi Kaming was different. Although his cultivation was only at the first sky of the spirit severing stage, a Xiantian talisman master was the strongest existence among the cultivators. Qi Kaming had restricted Muyu's spatial array technique, and Muyu's cultivation was not as good as his opponent's, so he had fallen into an absolute disadvantage. Muyu kept running, and the rune arrows behind him rushed towards him without any regard for their lives. From time to time, Muyu would have to stop and use his tyrannical sword chi to destroy the rune arrows that were blocking his path. As the sword chi and the arrows clashed, Muyu did not gain the upper hand and could only force the arrows back. However, there were even more arrows that shot towards Muyu from tricky angles. Chi Kaming did not move. He found that every time Muyu ran, he would inadvertently find a gap in his arrows, which made him slightly surprised. He was very familiar with his own talisman technique, but even the strongest talisman technique had its weak points. He had always been thinking of ways to make up for the weak points of this talisman technique, and tried his best to make it perfect. Ordinary people, after entering his talisman technique, found that they could not fly or jump, and could not even use teleportation techniques. They would have already lost their sense of propriety. After seeing Chi Kaming appear, they would definitely rush towards Chi Kaming regardless of everything, because as long as the caster was killed, the talisman technique would definitely dissipate. But Muyu's behavior was different from everyone else. He actually chose to run directly, and ran towards the place where the rune arrows were most concentrated, as if he was seeking his own death. But there was always a chance of survival in a desperate situation. Because Muyu didn't play by the rules, Chi Kaming had mobilized all the runic arrows to assassinate Muyu. However, this had also indirectly caused the originally orderly runic arrows to deviate from their original flight path and start to become disorderly and disorderly. Muyu's mouth slightly raised. Although Chi Kaming did not underestimate him, he still wanted to kill him too much. All the rune arrows were adjusted to kill him, and had long become a mess. By the time Chi Kaming reacted, the trajectory of all the rune arrows was already irreversible. When he moved, he naturally didn't run around randomly. He also didn't do it purely for the sake of seeking death. Instead, he purposely chose a place with a lot of runic arrows to run towards, so that Chi Kaming could personally disrupt even more runic arrows. Throughout the entire process of running, Chi Kaming had been led by the nose by Muyu due to his carelessness. At this time, he was of the world of the 7 runes. You can't run? Then prepare to die. Although Chi Kaming's rune arrows had been thrown into disarray, his arrows still managed to surround Muyu. Muyu's surroundings were filled with his rune arrows, and he had nowhere to run. The sky was filled with rune arrows, and they bombarded Muyu. At this time, unless he used the Big Dipper constellation formation to teleport away, but this technique had already restricted Muyu's sense of direction. The moment he left the ground, the formation would lose its effect. Muyu could not escape even if he had wings, and could only endure. Is that so? Muyu looked at the sky filled with arrows, and did not frown in the slightest. On the contrary, he appeared to have a card up his sleeve. There was no way Muyu could block so many rune arrows. Chi Kaming could already imagine the miserable scene of Muyu being turned into a hornet's nest by those rune arrows. He even revealed a vengeful smile. But when he saw Muyu's calm expression, his heart inexplicably jumped. Chi Kaming vaguely felt that something was wrong. Looking at the deep pit under Muyu's feet, he finally realized what was wrong. The place where Muyu had stopped was the place where he had started running. Muyu had unknowingly run a circle around Chi Kaming on the paper. The densely packed rune arrows instantly enveloped Muyu, but Muyu suddenly disappeared from his original position. How was this possible? How can you teleport in my rune technique? Chi Kaming cried out in disbelief. The mountain-river diagram clearly restricted the space formation, and Muyu could not teleport. But now, Muyu's figure had disappeared in the center of the rune arrows. You want to restrict my Big Dipper constellation formation? Your rune technique is not qualified. Unknowingly, Muyu had already appeared behind Chi Kaming. He indifferently looked at Chi Kaming, and at the same time looked at those rune arrows. Chi Kaming's rune arrows had already locked onto Muyu's aura. In the instant that Muyu had teleported away, all the arrows were like headless flies that had lost their target. When the target's aura appeared again, they could not help but change their direction. But because the rune arrows were shooting towards Muyu from all directions, and had already reached a frightening degree, when they changed direction, those rune arrows immediately squeezed together and collided with the other rune arrows. Boom! Every single rune arrow was extremely tyrannical. After they collided with each other, due to the rebounding force from each other, they quickly erupted with a terrifying killing power and exploded. All of the rune arrows were turned into rune fragments, and a terrifying shockwave erupted from where Mu Yu had been standing at the beginning, violently exploding. The entire hillside was blasted open, and Qi Kaming's Mountain River Extreme celestial diagram vaguely showed signs of collapsing. How is this possible? Qi Kaming turned around to look at Mu Yu, who was not far away, in both shock and anger. The sudden explosion of the rune arrows was something he had not expected. He had originally planned to use them to deal with Mu Yu, and had thought that he could easily kill Mu Yu. But Mu Yu had suddenly activated the Big Dipper constellation formation, and even caused his rune arrows to be in a mess. If I can't leave the ground to activate the spatial formation, then can't I just teleport on the ground? Mu Yu laughed. Qi Kaming was still unable to accept Mu Yu's explanation. Impossible. You can't possibly discover the ground's position. The surroundings are all illusions created by you using the trees and light, right? But illusions will eventually be corrected. Did you really think that I wouldn't be able to discover you if you hid the ground? Mu Yu took a slight step forward, and countless runes suddenly appeared around Qi Kaming. Those runes were actually the footprints that Mu Yu had left behind when he was running. They had been silently set up by Mu Yu. Mu Yu had relied on these runes as markings to determine where the real ground of the forest was, and thus get rid of the visual differences. As long as he used the Big Dipper constellation formation to teleport, he would refer to the footprints that he had just set. Then, the teleportation location would not be a millimeter off the ground and cause the formation to fail. Footprints? Damn it! Qi Kaming looked fiercely at the runes formed by the footprints around him. He had not noticed Mu Yu's little movements at first, and it was already too late to realize it now. The rune arrows that he had set up in the Mountain River celestial pole diagram had all been destroyed because of the collision. But Qi Kaming quickly put away his angry expression and instead revealed a mocking smile. Even so, you can only teleport on your own footprints. You can't get close to me, and my runes are not just arrows. Mu Yu was not in a hurry. Instead, he looked at Qi Kaming with a playful expression. You underestimate my runes too much. Just as his voice fell, the runes that Mu Yu had set up around Qi Kaming suddenly seemed to come alive. Countless runes surged out and intertwined with each other like a spider web. They formed lines of spirit energy that covered the entire ground, enveloping Qi Kaming and Mu Yu. Qi Kaming's feet were all crisscrossing runes. These runes were what Mu Yu relied on to teleport. Qi Kaming suddenly realized that he could not stop these runes from extending. Runes floated around Mu Yu's body. He took a step forward and appeared behind Qi Kaming. His palm drew an arc in the air, and a ripple appeared in the air. The shadow clone sword surged out from the ripple, and the violent sword energy poured down on Qi Kaming's body. Qi Kaming was shocked. The runes under his feet flashed, and he instantly disappeared and appeared on the other side. This was his runes. Although his runes had restricted him, he knew how to move in the world he had created. Qi Kaming knew that Mu Yu had seen through the weakness of his runes. Mu Yu had added his runes to his runes. In Mu Yu's runes, even with his severed soul stage cultivation, he could not stop Mu Yu. This was because Mu Yu's teleportation ability was not weaker than his. However, Qi Kaming understood that as long as he broke free from Mu Yu's runes, then the trap that Mu Yu had set for him would be ineffective. But what made Qi Kaming even more shocked was that he had no way of passing through Mu Yu's rune array. You trapped me. Do you think I can't trap you? Mu Yu had always believed that reciprocity was a good trait. Qi Kaming had used the Talisman Shadow Mountain River diagram to pull him into this godforsaken place. Mu Yu had long wanted to give Qi Kaming a taste of his own medicine. Qi Kaming no longer tried to break through Mu Yu's runes enchantment. Mu Yu's runes enchantment was very strange. Even with his severed soul stage strength, he could not break it by force. He turned around and looked at Muyu with a sneer. If you trap me in your runes, then with your out-of-body stage cultivation, you will definitely die. The tyrannical aura of the severed soul stage instantly enveloped Muyu. The first celestial layer of the severed soul stage was still one level higher than the ninth celestial layer of the out-of-body stage. I don't think so. Muyu's eyes narrowed, and then the runes that were originally crisscrossing like a spider web began to shrink. In the blink of an eye, there was only one straight rune left, connecting Qi, Kaming, and Muyu's feet. It seemed to bind them together. What kind of runes is this? Qi, Kaming frowned. He wanted to move, but he suddenly found that he could no longer move left and right after being bound by the strange runes. In your runes, there's only the concept of long and wide, but in my runes, there's only the concept of long. I named this rune's wind, sun, a line in the sky. Muyu said lightly. In a normal world, cultivators could move forward, back, left, right, up, and down. In the rune Shadow Mountain River map, cultivators could only move forward, back, left, and right. They could not leave the ground. Chapter 474. You named it. Qi Kaming was slightly surprised. I invented the formation myself, so of course I named it. Muyu said lightly. The formation, wind, sun, a line of sky, was indeed created by Muyu himself. To be exact, it was more complicated than Qi Kaming's mountain river talisman Shadow Mountain Peak diagram. Using the formation pattern footprints just now, this formation was perfectly applied to the two of them. Muyu relied on his powerful calculation ability to deduce the principle of the mountain river talisman Shadow Mountain Peak diagram, talisman technique. He found that since this talisman technique could restrict cultivators from leaving the ground, then it meant that if it was further transformed, it could further restrict cultivators' space of movement. He originally wanted to transform this formation to the point where Qi Kaming couldn't move, but later he found that this kind of formation couldn't be done with his out-of-body stage cultivation. At most, he could only restrict Qi Kaming's space of movement to a straight line. However, because this formation was cast by Muyu, its flaw was that even Muyu could only follow the rules of this formation. Wind, sun, a line of sky connected Muyu and Qi Kaming to the same formation pattern, which meant that they couldn't move to the side except on this straight line of formation pattern. They couldn't even fly. After Qi Kaming found that his freedom of movement was restricted, he inexplicably panicked in his heart. However, he quickly calmed down and carefully walked along the straight line of formation pattern towards Muyu. Then he found out the characteristics of this formation. How could you create this kind of formation in such a short time? Qi Kaming asked in disbelief. Qi Kaming still couldn't accept this fact. He had just brought Muyu into his talisman technique for less than a quarter of an hour, and Muyu actually found the flaw in his talisman technique and created a very heaven-defying formation. The most important point was that Muyu is only out-of-body stage. It was reasonable to say that his formation couldn't restrict a function stage cultivator, but now Qi Kaming found that he couldn't break Muyu's formation. Nothing is impossible. Don't be too surprised. Muyu had once learned a very ingenious method of setting up a formation from Deadwood Daddy's Xian formations. That was to use the formation patterns to evenly transmit the attacks of the intruder to other positions of the formation. This method of setting up a formation was quite complicated, but could also ensure that even if he met someone with a higher cultivation than him, they wouldn't be able to break his formation with a single punch. Qi Kaming retracted his shocked expression and said fiercely, "Since your array technique has tied yourself to this array pattern, then you are simply walking into a trap." As he spoke, Qi Kaming had already rushed towards Muyu. He didn't use any talisman techniques because he knew that many techniques would be ineffective in this straight line. Qi Kaming was right. Just like his talisman Shadow Mountain River diagram restricted all spells related to height, the wind, sun, a single line of heaven definitely restricted all spells related to width and height. It was even more powerful than his talisman techniques. If he wanted to kill Muyu, he could only choose to use the most primitive spiritual power to kill the other party. The spiritual power of the spirit-severing stage instantly emerged from Qi Kaming's hand. The violent spiritual power formed a white light that carried a terrifying killing intent towards Muyu. In his judgment, Muyu couldn't use any spells related to width and height here. Even if Muyu wanted to use teleportation, it would be useless, because in the Wind Sun, a single line of heaven array technique, he could only appear in this straight line after teleporting. Even if he teleported behind Qi Kaming could still use his spiritual power to deal with Muyu. However, Muyu didn't teleport away. He didn't even move. He only raised the shadow sword in his hand and pointed it at Qi Kaming. The biting cold sword Qi flowed in Muyu's hand with a brilliant heavenly power. In Qi Kaming's eyes, the shadow sword in Muyu's hand seemed to have divided into 9 heavenly swords. Each heavenly sword was performing a mysterious and complex sword move. Those sword moves looked so ethereal and unfathomable. But when Qi Kaming came back to his senses, he found that the shadow sword in Muyu's hand didn't move at all. There were no other sword shadows. It was just the shadow sword. But that shadow sword made Qi Kaming feel an inexplicable palpitation. How is this possible? He was a spirit-severing stage Xiantian talisman master. How could he be afraid of an out-of-body stage array master? But the arrogant and domineering sword intent in Muyu's hand trembled and splashed. It was as if there was only one person left in the world. That sword was so pure, without any fancy place. A simple sword, a simple stab. When the sword stabbed out, it seemed to stab out thousands of times. The violent sword intent instantly shot towards Qi Kaming. Its power was unparalleled and unstoppable. Qi Kaming's spiritual power was torn apart like snow under Muyu's sword intent. He was shocked to find that he couldn't block this simple and terrifying sword. He wanted to dodge, but he forgot that there was no way to dodge on the straight line of the array. He could only retreat or take it head-on. Qi Kaming chose to retreat, but the sword arrived in an instant. He raised his hands in panic, and a powerful spiritual power exploded from his body. He wanted to take on Muyu's terrifying sword head-on. Boom! Muyu's simple sword had directly pierced through Qi Kaming's spiritual energy barrier. It had even pierced through the intersection of his arms, leaving a large bloody hole in his throat. Qi Kaming opened his mouth wide in horror. He wanted to say something, but all he could do was spit out a mouthful of blood. His aura was constantly weakening, and his life force was rapidly draining away. An invisible white light gushed out of his body, trying to enter the void, but it was completely swallowed up by the wood spirit. Qi Kaming, who was at the first layer of the spirit-severing stage, died. Muyu breathed a sigh of relief. Facing a spirit-severing stage Xiantian talisman master, his pressure could be imagined. But fortunately, the Wind Sun line in the sky formation helped him a lot. It made Qi Kaming unable to use his talisman skills easily. A talisman master without talisman skills was like a tiger without claws and teeth. He could not exert 30% of his strength. Under Muyu's powerful and cold sword Qi Kaming could not block it at all. Cracks began to appear on the talisman shadow mountain river diagram, which was formed by the runes. The entire array began to shake, and then the surroundings exploded with a loud bang. Qi Kaming's talisman skills completely disappeared, and his body fell to the ground with a bang. Outside, Xiao Shuai had also easily captured Jiang Xiandi. At this time, Jiang Xiandi's body was char-black. It was unknown how many times he had been struck by Xiao Shuai's powerful lightning sword. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Xiao Shuai, you can actually kill Jiang Xiandi? Then, can't you also be an extreme immortal? Muyu was surprised. He just wanted Xiao Shuai to delay Jiang Xiandi, but he did not expect Xiao Shuai to directly subdue him. Xiao Shuai said proudly, "Extreme immortal is nothing. My thunder sword is powerful. This time, the big earthworm will definitely know who is more powerful between me and it." At this moment, Xiao Shuai was still holding the huge sword that was dozens of times taller than him. A small person waving a huge sword around, it was very interesting. Dragon Tongue was not satisfied. Muyu, why didn't you let me fight just now? Muyu helplessly touched his forehead and said, Dragon tongue, it is not that I don't want you to fight, but once you appear, a dragon is not a joke. It is also a 10,000-year-old dragon tongue. If a few more powerful formation masters came, do you want to be captured and used to make medicine? In fact, Muyu also considered another point. If Dragon Tongue fought, it would cause too much of a commotion. Many people would also connect Dragon Tongue to the previous incident on Fuxian Island. Muyu did not want to expose his identity now. In contrast, Xiao Shuai usually liked to sleep in Muyu's pocket or chest clothes. Not many people knew him. Xiao Shuai began to wave his huge sword in high spirits and shouted in a childish voice, Muyu, let's go kill the other talisman masters. Let the big earthworm stare at us. No, I want to go too. Dragon Tongue was unhappy. Don't mess around. We are too few and can't defeat the talisman masters. We have to rely on the formation hall to fight against the talisman grandmasters. Muyu said seriously. Then, he removed the wind-heart linking array, grabbed Xiao Shuai's tail, and stuffed him into his pocket. Xiao Shuai's huge blue sword disappeared. He was still a little unhappy. He glanced at Cheng Zhua, who was still in disbelief with his mouth open. Obviously, whether it was Muyu killing a Funshin Khanate talisman master or Xiao Shuai killing an extreme immortal, these things had deeply shocked him. Muyu, this can't be true, right? You actually killed a Funshin Khanate talisman master? And that little mouse. Cheng Zhua swallowed a mouthful of saliva and slapped himself again, thinking that he was dreaming. Little mouse, your sister. My name is Xiao Shuai. Xiao Shuai stuck out his head and scolded in exasperation. Cheng Zhua quickly shut his mouth and dared not speak again. He was afraid that he would provoke this little guy who only knew how to eat and he would be electrocuted. Xiao Shuai's mysterious thunderfall just now really scared him. Don't worry about this. We have to retreat. Muyu glanced at the battlefield behind him. At this moment, those Khanate talisman masters and Khanate formation masters were still fighting fiercely. However, the Khanate formation masters were obviously more and more tired, but there was no sign of defeat. On the battlefield of the formation grandmasters, the Khanate formation masters still had the geographical advantage. The sound of countless other talisman masters rushing over could be heard from afar. They were only heaven talisman masters, and their cultivation was not as good as the Khanate talisman masters. Their speed was a little slow. Although a part of the protective formation around the formation field had been broken by the formation rune stones, this place was already at the edge of the formation hall's protection. Powerful formation runes gushed out from the formation hall in the distance, blocking those heaven talisman masters with low cultivation outside. They could not join the battle at all. Even if they joined the battle, it would be useless because the battle between the Khanate formation masters and the Khanate talisman masters was not something they could interfere with. What made them most aggrieved was that they were originally full of enthusiasm and wanted to fight to the death with the disciples of the formation grandmasters. However, all the disciples of the formation grandmasters were nowhere to be seen. The formation grandmasters were completely an empty shell. Muyu had already seen that at least 6 Khanate talisman masters of the talisman sect had died at this moment. It seemed that they did not need to rely on the formation hall to defeat the people of the talisman sect. As long as the sect master of the talisman sect, Chang Tianqing, was defeated by Zhuge Shaoxing, the talisman sect would be leaderless and utterly defeated. Muyu cast his gaze on the battle between the two sect masters. Zhuge Shaoxing and Chang Tianqing were also engaged in a fierce battle. Chang Tianqing seemed to be borrowing a mysterious power. From time to time, a sacred white glow would surge out from his body. It was completely different from the white formation runes used by Zhuge Shaoxing. The talisman technique used by Chang Tianqing had also become extremely powerful and was faintly suppressing Zhuge Shaoxing. Zhuge Shaoxing was exhausted. Although he would not be defeated in a short period of time, it was extremely strenuous. Muyu's pupils shrank. He recognized the white glow on Chang Tianqing's body. That sacred glow was the mark of a person from the Triple Palace. There was indeed the shadow of the Triple Palace behind Chang Tianqing. Zhuge Shaoxing had clearly suppressed Chang Tianqing in the beginning. However, Chang Tianqing had borrowed the power of the Triple Palace to be on par with Zhuge Xiaosheng. At this moment, Muyu seemed to have sensed something. He turned his head and saw a figure emitting a sacred white glow in the sky above the formation hall. He was looking down at everything from a high vantage point. This person was so imposing in the sky. He was like a god that made people want to submit to him. The battle was extremely intense. However, this person only watched silently and did not choose to interfere. Chapter 475. Muyu's heart seemed to have been grabbed by someone. Endless hatred surged out from his heart again. He couldn't forget the scene of Deadwood Daddy being killed by the enforcers of the Triple Palace. He couldn't forget the moment when Deadwood Daddy died in his arms. He couldn't forget the regret in Deadwood Daddy's heart. The Triple Palace used Tian Bu waiting to kill Deadwood Daddy. Now, Deadwood Daddy's soul was injured, but he didn't know how to heal it. He didn't even know how to save Deadwood Daddy. Muyu's chest was filled with anger, but he couldn't do anything. His cultivation was still so insignificant. He couldn't compete with the person in the sky above the formation hall. The aura exuded by the imposing figure above the array hall was even more profound than the aura of the threefold palace's enforcer that Muyu had seen before. Deadwood Daddy once said that the Triple Palace's formation guardian would definitely come to the Array sect just to kill one of the guardians of the immortal confining prison, Array Heavenly Tao. The person in front of him was most likely the guardian of the Triple Palace. This person floated above the formation hall and didn't do anything unnecessary. It was as if he was a spectator or a king watching his army kill the enemy. Fengmu, what are you looking at? Chengzhou curiously followed Muyu's gaze. The person above the formation hall. Muyu's voice became strangely calm. When hatred surged into his heart, it made him very clear-headed. He knew what he should and shouldn't do. The person above the formation hall? Where's he? How come I don't see him? Chengzhou scanned the formation hall for a long time. Other than the majestic formation hall, he didn't see anyone else. Muyu had a trace of doubt in his eyes. You can't see the person above the formation hall? Chengzhou worriedly said. Fengmu, are you seeing things? There's no one above the formation hall. The sky above the array hall is clearly, Muyu frowned. He shifted his gaze to the battlefield where the Khanate Formation Masters and Khanate Talisman Masters were fighting. He realized that he was the only one who could sense the person in the sky above the array hall. The others could not see the three-layered palace guardian at all. The aura of the guardian of the Triple Palace was extremely strong, and the white light on his body was so dazzling, like a god descending to the world. How could no one notice such a big living person standing in the sky above the array hall? Could it really be an illusion? But at this moment, the man in the air suddenly moved. He turned in a direction and slowly took a step forward. His figure had already appeared 100 feet away. He took another step and headed towards the Forbidden Forest. Forbidden Forest. Formation Heavenly Tao. Muyu was shocked. Ever since Formation Heavenly Tao passed down its knowledge to Muyu in a special way, it had fallen into a deep slumber. The flowing water at his fingertips seemed to have preserved his last breath of life. As long as he was alive, the control of the immortal confining prison would not completely fall into the hands of the guardian of the Triple Palace. Nothing must happen to Formation Heavenly Tao. Chengzhou, take them to the array hall and wait for me. Protect yourselves. Muyu did not wait for Chengzhou to ask. Formation runes flashed around him, and he disappeared on the spot, heading towards the Forbidden Forest. The Forbidden Forest of the Array sect had a very strong protective formation set up by Formation Heavenly Tao himself. Ordinary people, be it Khanate Formation Masters or Khanate Talisman Masters, could not force their way in. The guardian of the Triple Palace landed outside the Forbidden Forest. Powerful formation runes emerged and blocked him outside. But he did not panic. The white light on his body turned into ripples and merged into the formation runes of the Forbidden Forest. Then, a crack was forcefully torn open in the sky above the Forbidden Forest. The guardian of the Triple Palace silently stepped into the Forbidden Forest. Muyu had already snuck into the forbidden forest before the guardian of the Triple Palace. He knew the principles behind the formation runes and chose a shortcut. Thus, the moment he entered the forbidden forest, he quickly used the formation runes to reach formation Heavenly Tao's side. Leaves fluttered in the forest, and all the trees turned yellow. It was as if the autumn frost had arrived and all the trees withered. The air in the forest was like flowing water with mysterious ripples gently swaying. Leaves fluttered down and landed on Formation Heavenly Tao's shoulder. Formation Heavenly Tao closed his eyes and sat cross-legged on a pile of leaves. At this moment, the leaves had covered his entire body. Suddenly, Formation Heavenly Tao opened his eyes and saw Muyu. "Senior, the guardian of the Triple Palace is here. He will do something to you," Muyu hastily said. He had to take Heavenly Formation Tao away for the sake of the Tao's life and his master. Formation Heavenly Tao couldn't even move his head at this moment. He softly said, "Don't talk, he is here." Having said that, a majestic white figure suddenly appeared next to Muyu. Muyu was startled and stood in front of Formation Heavenly Tao, wanting to pull him into the trees and leave this place. However, the guardian of the threefold palace turned a blind eye to Muyu, as if he couldn't even see Muyu's existence. "Formation Heavenly Tao, I didn't expect you to use another method to obtain eternal life." The guardian's voice was very majestic, like an emperor. His tone was unquestionable. His holy aura went past Muyu and landed on Array Heavenly Tao, as if he wanted Array Heavenly Tao to submit. "Put away your hypocritical tricks. They are useless against me." Formation Heavenly Tao looked a bit tired, but his eyes were still as bright as the stars, capable of seeing through all the darkness in this world. No one dared to look him in the eye. The white light around the guardian of the threefold palace was very pure, and his imposing body looked very sacred. No matter who saw this person, they couldn't help but want to bow down and worship him. However, Formation Heavenly Tao didn't fall for it. After all, Formation Heavenly Tao's formation techniques were on par with the Formation Heavenly Tao's. Muyu looked at the guardian of the threefold palace in front of him with trepidation. This was the first time he really faced his enemy, the one who killed Deadwood's father and coveted his master's immortal body. Finger-flowing water formation, truly a great formation. The guardian of the threefold palace reached out his hand and gently stroked the water ripples in the air. He could not help but exclaim in admiration. The dignified aura on his body immediately disappeared. He was just like an ordinary cultivator, so inconspicuous. Muyu was finally certain that the guardian of the threefold palace really couldn't see him. "Bai Jie, you are too greedy," Formation Heavenly Tao said flatly. "It's been a long time since someone dared to call me by my name." The guardian wandered around the forest as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. He seemed to be enjoying the unique coolness of autumn. "I like autumn." The leaves around Bai Jie seemed to be summoned by something and formed a huge autumn character in front of him. Formation Heavenly Tao didn't look at Bai Jie. He couldn't move because the flowing water at his fingertips had sealed his life. "You shouldn't have attacked Jian Ing Chun Feng." Formation Heavenly Tao's tone was very calm. He didn't panic because of Bai Jie's appearance. Bai Jie walked in front of Formation Heavenly Tao and stared at him. "You also envy Jianing Chun Feng's eternal body, don't you? Some people can live forever because they have the right to. You don't." Formation Heavenly Tao glanced at Muyu. A formation rune flashed in his deep eyes. Muyu gritted his teeth and quietly retreated to the side. For some unknown reason, Muyu had become invisible in front of Bai Jie, the guardian of the third layer palace. "I don't agree with your view. Eternal people are only lucky. To be honest, I also like the flowing water at fingertips formation you invented. To a certain extent, it represents eternal life. However, I don't like the half-dead type of eternal life. I prefer the eternal life of people like Jian Ing Chun Feng." Bai Jie smiled. Muyu clenched his fists. "You know why I'm here today, right?" Bai Jie continued. "You want to destroy my formation school." Formation Heavenly Dao's voice became a bit shaky. You misunderstand. Chang Tianqing is the only one who wants to destroy your school. I only used his formation runestone to come here, so I'm here to catch up with you. Bai Jie said. Formation Heavenly Dao already knew that Bai Jie would come looking for him, so he set up some formations in the sect specifically to defend against Bai Jie. However, these formations were ultimately broken by Chang Tianqing's formation runestone. With Formation Heavenly Dao's current situation, it couldn't deal with the interference of the runestone. Formation Heavenly Dao wasn't surprised at all and said flatly, "Everyone in the cultivation world is blinded by you. How sad. Cultivators themselves are sad. There's no need for me to do anything." Bai Jie didn't comment. Bai Jie seemed to have thought of something and said, "I'm here today because I'm very curious about something. Is Jianying's disciple, that Mu Yu, in your school?" Mu Yu frowned. The guardian of Formation Heavenly Dao didn't know where he was, but he was clearly standing right next to him. What? There's someone Heavenly Dao can't find? Formation Heavenly Dao sneered. No need to laugh at me. We know best what kind of person Deadwood Evergreen is. If I'm not wrong, Deadwood Evergreen must have set up a blood protection shrouding sky formation in Mu Yu's body to protect him. Even I can't find any trace of him. Bai Jie didn't feel ashamed at all because he couldn't find someone. Withered Tree Evergreen's formation skills were the best among the 6 formation grandmasters. Even Bai Jie was convinced of this fact. Blood sky shrouding? What kind of formation was this? Mu Yu was extremely shocked. Had Deadwood's father set up a formation in her body that could allow her to avoid the 3-layered palace? But why didn't he know about this? When was this formation set up? Deadwood Evergreen is a very smart person. You should have thought of this when you killed him. Formation Heavenly Dao sneered. Blood sky shrouding formation is indeed powerful. I'm actually curious. Didn't he hate Jianing for stealing his lover? Why would he sacrifice his life to use Blood Shield to protect Sword Shadow Dust Wind's disciple? Bai Jie asked. Mu Yu was stunned. Sacrifice his life? Could it be that Deadwood Daddy's death wasn't that simple? Formation Heavenly Dao silently looked at Mu Yu and sighed. You will never understand Deadwood Evergreen's emotions. Bai Jie laughed. He's already dead. What's the point of having more emotions? Emotions stop Deadwood Evergreen. Otherwise, with his talent, he could have done anything he wanted in the cultivation world. Even I would be wary of him. Mu Yu felt a pang of sadness in his heart. Deadwood's father's personality was very strange, and he didn't say a single good word to him. But this strange old man had displayed strength that not even the ruler of the 3rd continent, White Realm, dared to underestimate. He knew that when Miao Yin chose to be with his master, it hurt Deadwood Daddy greatly. Perhaps it was because of this that Deadwood Daddy couldn't recover. He's dead. Do you think you can rest easy? Whether it's Jianing, Chun Feng, or Deadwood Evergreen, the 2 of them far surpass you. Do you think they can't stop you? Formation Heavenly Dao coldly looked at Bai Jie, who was covered in white light. They can't stop me. After you die, Immortal Prison will no longer be Jianing and Chun Feng's shelter. His immortal body will fall into my hands. At that time, I won't be like you, struggling at death's door. The 3 continents will always be under my control. Hearing Bai Jie's words, Mu Yu's anger soared to the heavens. He wished he could kill Bai Jie with a single strike, but he knew he didn't have the ability to kill him. He might even be discovered. Deadwood's father didn't use the blood covering the sky formation to protect him so that he could act recklessly. Chapter 476. The withered leaves rippled in the water, and many still landed on Heavenly Array Dao. Heavenly Array Dao didn't stop the leaves, and he couldn't stop them either. You've perfected the soul formation. That's really beyond my expectations. Bai Jie didn't hide his praise at all. The entire cultivation world listens to you. Do you have so little confidence in your leadership? Do you still need a soul formation to control cultivators? Heavenly Array Dao mocked. Bai Jie wasn't angered by Heavenly Array Dao's words and continued. You don't have to worry about that. I only saw a little of it that day, but I don't know all of its secrets. However, I know you wouldn't be willing to take such a powerful formation to your grave. You must have passed it down in another way. Let me think, if it's not Zhuge Shaoxing or Mu Qinghong, then it's that genius disciple, Feng Mu, or Mu Yu, right? Bai Jie knew everything about heavenly array, Dao, like the back of his hand. You won't find him. Heavenly array, Dao replied faintly. Bai Jie laughed, his voice was confident. You should know that there are many things in the cultivation world that I don't have to do personally. Evergreen can use Blood Shield to protect Mu Yu from me, but Mu Yu can't hide from others in the cultivation world. The entire 3 continents are under my rule. Someone will find him for me. When the time comes, he will obediently tell me the complete divine soul array. Mu Yu looked at Bai Jie. His enemy was standing right in front of him, but he couldn't kill him. His cultivation was still so weak. Bai Jie couldn't kill him personally, but his words made Mu Yu's heart heavy. He would have to face the entire cultivation world in the future. Last time, Bai Jie didn't attack Mu Yu because of the White Ape Demon King, but this time was different. Blinding white light surged around Bai Jie. Formation runes appeared in the air. He looked at Heavenly Array Dao and said, I came to see you. I'm very satisfied with your current situation. The white light became brighter and brighter until it seemed to explode. Violent ripples appeared in the air, and the white world disappeared. Mu Yu looked at Array, Heavenly Dao's life, force slowly fading away. He knew why Bai Jie didn't kill Array Heavenly Dao directly. Array Heavenly Dao had the protection of time in the flowing water at the fingertips, so Bai Jie couldn't kill him. However, Bai Jie understood that he didn't need to do it himself. He only came here to confirm whether or not Formation Heavenly Dao was about to die. Mu Yu looked at Heavenly Array Dao in silence. Neither of them spoke. Bai Jie was simply too powerful. If it was Formation Heavenly Dao at its peak, perhaps he could use his formation techniques to fight against Bai Jie. But now he couldn't. After a long time, Mu Yu gritted his teeth and asked, What is blood covers the sky? You don't know? Heavenly Array Dao was surprised. Mu Yu shook his head. I thought you knew. From the moment I saw you, I saw Deadwood Evergreen's life force flowing inside your body in the form of formation runes. Heavenly Array Dao looked at Mu Yu. His deep eyes lit up. Formations are very magical. Its foundation is ever-changing, not just the things you see often. For example, the flowing water at the fingertips uses my body as the foundation, so I can't move. Immortal Confinement Prison uses Sword Shadow, Chun Feng's cultivation, as the foundation, so his powerful cultivation would be devoured. Blood Covers the Sky uses Deadwood Evergreen's life force as the foundation, so it consumes his life force. You must be very important to someone that Deadwood Evergreen would use his life force to protect. I don't know when he set up this formation for me. Mu Yu's voice became hoarse. Deadwood Daddy wasn't good at expressing his emotions. He always wanted to be a good father and let Mu Yu know he wasn't so useless. But after Deadwood Daddy lost his cultivation, he lost the ability to protect Mu Yu. Instead, he became the one being protected by Mu Yu. This was a great insult to someone who even Bai Jie, the guardian of the third palace, was afraid of. Perhaps it was because after seeing Miao Yuyin give birth to Tianran, Ku Mu also wanted to have a child for himself. He thought of Mu Yu as his own child, but he never said it out loud. He didn't even say when he set up this powerful formation for Mu Yu. He only cared about Mu Yu in his own way. I think you must have experienced a life-threatening situation at some point in time, the kind that almost couldn't be saved, right? The formation Blood Shrouds the Sky is equivalent to trading Deadwood Evergreen's life for yours. If you live, he will die. Even if the people of Third Palace didn't kill him, he wouldn't have lived for more than 3 months after using that formation. Formation Heavenly Dao said seriously. Life-threatening danger? Mu Yu paused. Little Shuai suddenly said, Mu Yu, Deadwood Daddy didn't want me to tell you something. When you separated life and death chi from the Netherworld grass, you couldn't withstand the invasion of the Netherworld grass death chi and would have died. It was at that time that Deadwood's father used an extremely terrifying formation technique to save you, and also allowed you to successfully subdue the death energy of the underworld grass. I saw through his lifespan, but he didn't let me say it. Muyu's body trembled. No wonder when Muyu woke up from the netherworld grass life and death chi, Deadwood couldn't wait to return to the Pill Cauldron sect. Muyu was unconscious for an entire month, and Deadwood guarded outside for an entire month. After using blood shrouds the sky, he only had 3 months left to live. In order to wait for Muyu to wake up, he had already lost a month. He wanted to return to the Pill Cauldron sect as soon as possible because he felt guilty towards Lung Bingxue and wanted to make it up to her before he died. However, Muyu didn't know any of this. He didn't even know that he was sucking Deadwood Daddy's life away. However, Deadwood Daddy didn't succeed in returning to the Pill Cauldron sect and was killed on the way. Blood Shrouds the Sky is very powerful because it uses Deadwood Evergreen's life in exchange for yours. It can protect you from certain people. I think Deadwood Evergreen must have sealed Bai Jie's aura in your body so that when you meet Bai Jie can't see you at all. He can't sense your existence and shouldn't be able to hurt you. I even think that the soul power of everyone in the Third Palace might not be able to hurt you. Muyu remembered something. When the Third Palace's law enforcers tried to kill Deadwood's father, Muyu stood in front of Deadwood's father. But the white light went through his body and didn't hurt him. He thought the Third Palace's law enforcers had done it on purpose. Now that he thought about it, it wasn't the enforcers being merciful. It was Blood Shrouds the Sky protecting Muyu. Array Heavenly Dao's words made Muyu feel sad. Deadwood Daddy never left him. Even after death, he used another method to protect him. In Deadwood Daddy's eyes, Muyu was always an optimistic child who liked to cause trouble. It was as if he would never grow up. Muyu felt his body become heavy. The life flowing in his body was Deadwood Daddy's. He didn't even realize it. However, Muyu still couldn't forgive Bai Jie for killing Deadwood Daddy. Deadwood Daddy used his life to protect Muyu from Bai Jie. Now that Bai Jie was controlling the entire cultivation world, how could Muyu just stand by and watch? What will Bai Jie do next? Muyu asked with a trembling voice. He won't personally participate in the war between the Array faction and the Talisman faction because he doesn't want the self-cultivators of the 3 continents to think that he's purposely taking sides. He has always wanted to establish a fair and impartial image in the world of self-cultivators. Therefore, he will only play tricks behind the scenes. If you can control the Array Hall, even he can't do anything to the Array faction. Array Heavenly Dao looked at Muyu. I understand. Muyu thought of the battle outside. Chang Tianqing borrowed a bit of Bai Jie's power. This power was called soul power. It countered the spirit power of cultivators. However, if the soul power couldn't hurt Muyu, then Muyu had a chance to deal with Chang Tianqing. Muyu walked out of the Forbidden Forest. He had to end this conflict with his own hands. Array Heavenly Dao looked at Muyu's back and then at the withered leaves around him. The leaves in the forest gradually fell, leaving only the lonely branches swaying in the ripples. There will be a time when the water runs out. Array Heavenly Dao smiled in relief. Living in this form for so many years could only be a form of torture. He gradually closed his eyes and calmly faced the path he should have walked many years ago. The ripples in the air rippled slightly. Then, the ripples grew weaker and weaker, gradually turning into straight array runes. The array runes then shook and disappeared. Array Heavenly Dao's last bit of life faded away with the runes. Bai Jie stood in the air above the array hall again, watching the battle. Apart from Muyu, no one else saw him. Muyu looked coldly at Bai Jie. This was a battle between formation and talisman techniques. Bai Jie wouldn't interfere so easily. He didn't want to leave behind any weakness in the cultivation world and affect his position in the hearts of cultivators. Muyu also knew what Bai Jie was waiting for. Bai Jie was waiting for Muyu to make a move. He was searching for Muyu. Father, wait for me. Muyu held the Khanate disciple's jade pendant. Array Heavenly Dao had helped him transfer the soul anchoring formation into it. Now that he'd learned how to maintain the formation, his determination to revive Deadwood Daddy wouldn't change. The Khanate Talisman Masters of the Talisman faction had already suppressed the Khanate Array Masters of the Array faction. Every Khanate Array Master's aura was extremely weak. Even with the help of the Array faction's defensive Array Master, he was finally showing signs of weakness after withstanding the attacks of several Khanate Talisman Masters. Muyu saw Grandmaster Crimson Flame, who was closest to him, being forced to retreat by two Khanate Talisman Masters. There was even a bone-deep wound on his back. "Even if I die, I'll take two of you down with me." Grandmaster Crimson Flame was a hot-tempered person. With a roar, his body suddenly bloomed with dazzling light. He wanted to die together with the two Khanate Talisman Masters. Chapter 477. Master Crimson Flame, don't! Muyu shouted and jumped up. Suddenly, dense array patterns shot out from under his feet like a spider web, covering the feet of the two innate Talisman Masters and Master Chihua in an instant. Then, all the array patterns began to shrink, and all the array patterns connected into a line in an instant. The powerful formation effect of Wind Sun, a thin line of sky, instantly suppressed Master Crimson Flame's self-explosion formation. The formation patterns under their feet were connected to Muyu's feet. Muyu clenched his teeth. He was only at the out-of-body stage, so it was very difficult for him to forcibly use Wind Sun, a thin line of sky, to bind the three masters at the spirit-severing stage. This formation could not bind them for too long. "Feng Mu, what are you doing here? Get out of here quickly!" Master Crimson Flame anxiously rebuked. "Master Crimson Flame, help me protect this formation." Muyu used 3 straight lines of formation patterns in different directions to connect the 3 masters to himself. This meant that if the 2 innate Talisman Masters attacked Muyu along the straight lines of formation patterns at the same time, Muyu would become the intersection of their attacks. Then, Muyu would have to use Master Crimson Flame to resolve their attacks. Master Crimson Flame saw the formation patterns under his feet and was shocked because he found that he could not use his formation here. It was as if he had entered a forbidden area, which made him panic. After all, there were 2 innate Talisman Masters on the other side. However, the 2 innate Talisman Masters' expressions were the same as his. They could not use some of their talisman skills either. But soon, they realized the strangeness of this formation and began to use their spiritual power to break free from the control of this talisman skill. Originally, it would take some time for an innate Talisman Master to break free from Muyu's formation, but it was different for 2 innate Talisman Masters. In the blink of an eye, the straight lines of formation patterns of Wind Sun, a thin line of sky, showed signs of collapse. "Quick, Master Crimson Flame!" Muyu shouted. Master Scarlet Flame also reacted. He stomped his feet and sent his spirit force into Muyu's straight line, stabilizing the formation that was about to collapse. "Feng Mu, what array formation is this?" Master Crimson Fire did not use any array techniques. Instead, he followed the straight array pattern to Muyu's side. "Wind Sun Frontline. This formation will restrict our techniques. We can only use formations in a straight line to defeat them," Muyu quickly explained. Master Crimson Flame originally wanted to ask a few more questions, but the 2 Khanate Talisman Masters opposite him also noticed the abnormality. Both of their fingers had already taken out a piece of talisman paper. In an instant, the talisman paper turned into a vortex of spiritual power. From the vortex, a long spear shot out. Following the straight line of the formation pattern, it swiftly stabbed towards Muyu. These 2 spears were very sharp and were formed from powerful runes. Their power had reached the spirit-severing stage and was much stronger than Qi Kaming. Muyu held his breath and instantly adjusted his position. He was the eye of the Wind Sun, a thin line of sky formation, and also the intersection point of the 2 straight lines. This meant that he could use the Big Dipper constellation formation to teleport on the straight lines at any time and adjust the position of the intersection point to move everyone to a straight line. Originally, when facing the 2 Khanate Talisman Masters, there was an angle between him and the straight lines of the 2 Khanate Talisman Masters. However, Mu Yu's movement caused the straight lines of the two Khanate Talisman Masters to overlap. The two straight lines joined together to form a single straight line. Mu Yu forcibly moved the two Khanate Talisman Masters to a straight line. At this moment, their positions were equivalent to Mu Yu facing the two Khanate Talisman Masters in front of him at the same time. To the horror of one of the Khanate Talisman Masters, his companion was standing in front of him. At this time, his talisman spear had already pierced his companion's back. Before the unlucky Khanate Talisman Master could react, his chest had been pierced by the talisman spear, leaving a bloody hole. He twitched twice in astonishment, and then his whole body suddenly exploded, shattered by the powerful force of the talisman spear. Mu Yu's pupil shrank. These two Khanate Talisman Masters had the cultivation of the fifth sky of spirit's severing stage and were much more powerful than Qi Kaming, who was frightened and at a loss at the beginning. This talisman spear had such terrifying power, it was really shocking. At this time, although the Khanate Talisman Master who was hit by his companion had died, his talisman spear was still sweeping towards Mu Yu. With Mu Yu's cultivation, he could not block this attack at all. Master Crimson Flame, help me block it. Mu Yu's feet flashed, and he immediately teleported behind Master Crimson Flame. Master Crimson Flame was a self-cultivator at the sixth sky of Spirit's severing stage. He was amazed by the characteristics of Mu Yu's formation, but he immediately knew what Mu Yu was thinking. He shook out a formation pattern in his hand, which turned into a sharp red shadow, and dispersed the talisman spear that was coming at him. How dare you? The Khanate Talisman Master roared angrily. Your companion was killed by you. It has nothing to do with me. Mu Yu snorted coldly, and the Big Dipper constellation formation under his feet surged again. In an instant, he came behind the Khanate Talisman Master, and together with Master Crimson Flame, he besieged the Khanate Talisman Master. Mu Yu raised the shadow-splitting sword in his hand again, and the biting cold sword chi flashed. 9 sword shadows seemed to be illusory, and in the blink of an eye, they merged into one. This simple sword, with an indomitable power, suddenly stabbed towards the Khanate Talisman Master. Want to kill me? Your sword chi is not enough. After all, the Khanate Talisman Master was at the fifth sky of Spirit's severing stage, and he was much more powerful than Mu Yu. Talisman patterns gushed out of his body and turned into a whirlpool black hole, swallowing all of Mu Yu's sword chi. However, Mu Yu had never expected that this sword strike would be able to injure his opponent. Master Crimson Flame was standing behind the Khanate Talisman Master. He suddenly shouted, and the horrible formation turned into a sky full of thunder and lightning sparks, which were transmitted to the Khanate Talisman Master along the straight formation pattern under his feet. The Khanate Talisman Master had just dissolved Mu Yu's powerful sword chi, and before he could react, the thunder and lightning sparks of Master Crimson Flame touched his body. He screamed and turned into a mass of black coal in the blink of an eye. Master Crimson Flame was a self-cultivator at the sixth sky of Spirit severing stage. His thunder and lightning were no joke, and he killed the Khanate Talisman Master in the blink of an eye. The straight formation pattern under his feet dissipated, and Master Crimson Flame breathed a sigh of relief. If Mu Yu hadn't come in time, he would have dragged the two Khanate Talisman Masters to death with him. Good boy, you're good. Master Crimson Flame laughed heartily. Mu Yu faintly smiled and glanced in the direction of the array hall. Bai Jia, who was above the array hall, was also looking at the situation here. Jianing Chun Fang Sword Chi, you are really here. Bai Jia was covered in white light, and his expression couldn't be seen at all. Mu Yu was invisible to him, but he had been paying attention to the situation of the whole battlefield. The sudden change on Master Crimson Flame's side and the straight formation pattern that appeared out of nowhere couldn't be hidden from his eyes. Mu Yu stopped smiling, and his eyes flashed with hatred. The blood protection sky made him not afraid of Bai Jie at all. Bai Jie could send everyone to deal with him, but he couldn't attack him personally. This was the only thing Mu Yu could rely on. It was also a protective formation that Deadwood Daddy had used his own life to create for Mu Yu. I will catch you. I will kill you. Bai Jie and Mu Yu spoke at the same time, as if they were talking to themselves. Their voices were strangely identical, but they didn't hear each other's voices. Feng Mu, what did you say? Master Crimson Flame asked in confusion. Mu Yu shook his head and retracted his gaze. Master Crimson Flame, we have to retreat to the formation hall. We can't continue fighting with them. Master Crimson Flame nodded and rushed toward Zhuge Xiaosheng with Mu Yu. At this time, Chang Tianqing had already gained the upper hand, and Zhuge Xiaosheng's formation net had been destroyed by the talisman arts. The clash of the two arts had reached its climax. Suddenly, the white light on Chang Tianqing's body flashed once more, and the formation stone appeared in his hand. Zhuge Xiaosheng's expression changed slightly. His formation arts were completely ineffective against the formation stone. Mu Yu noticed the restless stone in Chang Tianqing's hand as well, and he hurriedly shouted, "Don't fight. Our formation arts will be destroyed by the formation stone, and we'll retreat to the formation hall." The battle between formation masters and talisman masters relied on their arts, but the formation stone was the prototype of a forbidden art. Moreover, the formation stone was even more powerful. It didn't restrict talisman grandmasters from using talisman arts. Once it was used, these Xiantian formation masters could only passively take a beating. Retreat to the formation hall. Zhuge Xiaosheng roared. The formation patterns under his feet surged, and he retreated backward. At the same time, his hands didn't stop moving. The tyrannical formation patterns surged out and turned into a ripple-like wall, separating all the Xiantian talisman masters. However, the walls formed by these runes were easily destroyed by Chang Tianqing's rune stones. However, Chang Tianqing had also bought time for all the Xiantian array masters. Every Xiantian array master was injured, but not a single one of them had died. This was a blessing in disguise. The members of the Talisman Grandmaster had arrived in a ferocious manner. Thousands of talisman techniques and formation techniques clashed, causing the entire training ground to be reduced to ashes. 3 of the 8 mountains had even been broken by the powerful talisman formation techniques. The colorful light of the arts had illuminated the entire formation hall. All the talisman masters were filled with endless killing intent, and the formation masters looked as if they were facing death with equanimity. Zhuge Xiaosheng's formation pattern wall had been destroyed by Chang Tianqing, and the Xiantian talisman masters immediately took advantage of the situation to pursue. The formation masters dealt with the talisman arts that filled the sky while covering the retreat of Mu Yu and the rest who had lower cultivation. Mu Yu carried the unconscious Mu Chenghong, and Cheng Zhue carried Song Qingyu. Under the protection of the formation masters, the two of them quickly flew to the formation hall. The formation hall was already in front of them. At this moment, the formation hall was in a mess, and the stairway to heaven had been opened. Without a guide, it was impossible to climb up. "Follow me closely. I will bring you through the stairway to heaven in the fastest way." Mu Yu ran at the front. When the formation Heavenly Tao taught him how to control the formation hall, he had already deduced all the ways of the stairway to heaven. There were countless ways to climb the stairway to heaven. There were thousands of ways to climb the stairway to heaven, and each way required a different number of steps in time. Even if the number of steps was the same, but the direction chosen was different, the time spent would also be different. Today, Mu Yu didn't choose to climb the stairs with the least number of steps. Instead, he chose to climb the stairs with the shortest amount of time. He took 30 steps and used a quarter of an hour to successfully bring everyone into the array hall. Such a short amount of time was already very rare. The formation masters of the Talisman sect caught up to the formation hall and saw that all the formation masters were already climbing the stairway to heaven step by step. From afar, they saw how these formation masters climbed the stairway to heaven under Mu Yu's lead. They memorized the route of the stairway to heaven and stepped onto the first step without hesitation. But soon, all the formation masters were dumbfounded. This was because the second step of the stairway to heaven had already changed after they stepped onto the first step. The stairway to heaven in the formation hall was not something that could be climbed just by memorizing the route. The stairway to heaven was constantly changing. The route that Muyu led to the stairway to heaven only needed to be delayed for a few breaths before it became completely useless. What a powerful formation hall! Chang Tianqing had already used his formation rune stone, but the stairway to heaven was not affected by it at all. The formation hall's protective formation could not be broken by the formation rune stone. This was the strength of the formation hall. Sect Master, it's all right. I've already controlled Liu Dei during the battle just now. Especially Liu Dei. They still think that Situ Yangtian is a spy we sent. Zhou Jinglin's eyes flashed with a strange light. He will act according to the plan. Chapter 478. Everyone retreated into the array hall. At this moment, the array hall was empty with no one else around. To everyone, the array hall seemed to be a huge hall that was usually used by Khanate array masters to discuss the direction of the array faction. However, the array hall had a total of 8 floors. Each floor was engraved with a different spatial array that could store all the disciples of the array faction. It was like a sturdy fortress that no one outside could break in. This was also the reason why the Talisman Grandmaster had been waiting for an opportunity to control and Khanate array master. In order to defeat the array faction, they had to start from the array hall. At this moment, they were on the highest floor, which was the 8th floor. Other than the 19 array masters, there were only Mu Yu and the rest who were participating in the Talisman Array competition. We had to find a way to wake Mu Chenghong up. If something happens to him, the Array Hall can't be activated and we will be trapped here forever. Only by activating the Array Hall can we launch a counterattack against the Talisman Grandmaster outside, Zhuge Xiaosheng said in a low voice. Mu Chenghong's current situation was terrible. Although the god-vanquishing talisman was temporarily suppressed by Zhuge Xiaosheng, it still caused him to be unconscious. At this rate, it was highly likely that Mu Chenghong would never wake up. Mu Yu lowered his head to check the god-vanquishing talisman on Mu Chenghong's chest. This talisman was engraved on his chest. At this moment, it was covered with complicated red runes. Zhuge Xiaosheng's white runes had been suppressing the runes, but the red runes were gradually eroding the white runes. Once all the white runes were destroyed, the runes would invade Mu Chenghong's heart and destroy him. We don't need Senior Brother Mu's help. Let's activate the Array Hall directly. Mu Yu said, No, with your cultivation, if you don't have 20 Khanate Array Masters to hold the fort, the majestic aura of the Array Hall will instantly destroy you. Zhuge Xiaosheng said solemnly. After the battle just now, all of us have different degrees of injuries. It's hard to guarantee that there won't be any mistakes when we hold the fort. The reason why the Array Hall needed 20 Khanate Array Masters to hold the fort was that the Array Core of the Array Hall had to withstand the immense pressure of the Array Hall. In order to resist this pressure, one had to have a cultivation level as high as the heavenly Array Dao. That person alone could resist the pressure of the Array Hall. There was no need for anyone else to hold the fort. However, Mu Yu was only at the out-of-body stage, so he couldn't bear the pressure. He needed someone else to help him. The formation Heavenly Dao deduced that they needed at least 20 Khanate Array Masters to share the burden to ensure Mu Yu's safety. Mu Yu shook his head and said, We can only go all out. Without the help of one person, although I will have to bear a lot more pressure, it's not impossible. I should be able to persevere. What if you can't hold on? Zhuge Xiaosheng asked worriedly. Do we have any other way? Chang Tianqing wasn't an idiot. He would deduce the method to climb the stairway to heaven sooner or later. It was only a matter of time before they attacked the Array Hall. Let's just pray that his deduction ability isn't as good as mine. However, give him 4 hours and he'll find a way up. Mu Yu said, It's useless even if he climbs the stairway to heaven. The Rune Stone and the Array Hall are mutually exclusive. He won't be able to enter the Array Hall. Zhuge Xiaosheng was still very confident in the defensive capabilities of the Array Hall. Mu Yu shook his head and said, Chang Tianqing has someone helping him. Secmaster, you should know that. If it was under normal circumstances, Mu Yu wouldn't be worried. However, Bai Jie was watching all of this from the Array Hall. He wouldn't act openly due to his status, but he would definitely be able to guide Chong Tianqing on how to use the runestone to forcefully enter the array hall. After all, Bai Jie's formation skills were also quite powerful. Zhuge Xiaosheng also realized this point. Just now, he was suppressing Chong Tianqing in terms of formation skills, but Chong Tianqing used a strange force to suppress him. It was impossible to say that there wasn't someone behind him. Muyu stood up and glanced at the other Xiantian array masters. Muyu didn't even know the names of most of these people, but each of them was fighting for the array sect in a life-and-death situation. At this moment, they were already on the same side. If Muyu wanted to become the array eye of the array hall and control the entire array hall, he would need to rely on them. I just saw Elder Tianhewa from Stargate. He's a body integration stage cultivator. Their people from Stargate are also rushing in, Sitian Tian suddenly said from the side. Muyu glanced at Situyang Tian. Situyang Tian's chest was also dyed red with blood. His aura was very chaotic. A formation pattern flashed in Muyu's eyes. Then he said, "If the people from Stargate and Rune Sect rush into the array hall together, we won't be able to hold them off." Zhuge Xiaosheng looked determined. He nodded and glanced at Situ Yang Tian inadvertently. Then he said, "All right, we'll give it a try. If you can't hold on, stop. You're now the hope of our array sect. Even if the array sect is destroyed, I hope you can live on and preserve the last trace of our array sect. We'll fight our way out for you with our lives." Muyu's heart skipped a beat. He said, "I understand, Sect Master. I'll do my best." Everyone walked toward the center of the hall in silence. Zhuge Xiaosheng formed a formation pattern with his hand and merged it into the array hall. Then, the center of the array hall began to change. A yin-yang 8 trigrams slowly floated into the air from the center. As soon as the 8 trigrams appeared, the entire array hall trembled slightly. A vast power from ancient times that made one's heart palpitate was immediately emitted. This aura was solemn and weathered, as if it had experienced 1,000 years of wasted time and witnessed the vicissitudes of the world. It was awe-inspiring. Qishui, you stand in the southeast of the 8 trigrams. Xia, you stand in the northwest. Situyang Tian, you stand in the east. Zhuge Xiaosheng began to deliberately direct everyone's positions. Logically speaking, there was no requirement for a Xiantian array master to stand in the formation. They only needed to reach out to the aura of the 8 trigrams and use their own formation skills to withstand the powerful pressure of the array hall. However, Zhuge Xiaosheng had already made plans. 2 positions of 8 trigrams had already been set up with divine soul formations. One of them was prepared for Situ Yang Tian. The other Xiantian array masters had no objections. Only Situ Yang Tian's eyes revealed a trace of confusion. He didn't understand the meaning of Zhuge Xiaosheng's arrangement. All his memories of what happened last night had been erased by Zhou Jinglin with a divine soul talisman. However, he still suspected that Master Lu was the spy. It was just that he didn't have any evidence. Zhuge Xiaosheng didn't know that he suspected the wrong person. Master Lu's abnormality didn't attract anyone's attention. Everyone followed Zhuge Xiaosheng's instructions and surrounded the 8 trigrams. Zhuge Xiaosheng knew that Muyu trusted Master Lu the most. Therefore, he deliberately arranged for Master Lu to be close to Muyu in case Situyang Tian suddenly attacked. However, Zhuge Xiaosheng didn't know that his move had put Muyu in an even more dangerous situation. Muyu had already floated up and landed in the middle of the 8 trigrams. Let's begin. Muyu followed the method taught by Formation Heavenly Tao. He formed a formation pattern with both hands and shot it into the black and white eyes of the yin-yang fish. The yin-yang fish in the middle of the 8 trigrams below him began to slowly spin. As it spun faster and faster, a vast aura began to flow out of the 8 trigrams and poured onto Muyu. "Hold the line," Zhuge Xiaosheng shouted. Everyone began to form formation patterns to guide the vast aura to themselves so that Muyu wouldn't be destroyed by it. Master Lu was also guiding the aura. However, his head was still slightly lowered and his eyes were dull and lifeless. On the stairway outside the formation hall, more than 40 Khanate talisman masters were blocked outside. This was the first time they had come into contact with the formation hall's stairway. If they wanted to go up, they had to rely on powerful deduction skills. However, no one moved, including Chang Tianqing. It's like, Master, when do we go up? Do you want me to order Lu Dei to kill Feng Mu? Zhou Jinglin asked. Chang Tianqing looked at the constantly changing stairway and sneered. Don't worry. That kid is protected by so many Khanate talisman masters. Lu Dei might not be able to succeed. Since they've already retreated into the formation hall, we don't need to be too anxious. Our ultimate goal isn't Feng Mu, but this formation hall. Chang Tianqing had his own plans. He had been scheming to obtain the foundation of the formation faction for so many years. Naturally, he wouldn't be in a hurry. After a pause, Chang Tianqing continued. Lu Dei said that the activation and control method of the formation hall was only passed down to Feng Mu by the formation Heavenly Tao. Then, we'll go with the flow. After he activates the formation hall, we'll let Lu Dei kill him. If we attack the formation hall then, we can directly use the talisman stone to control the entire formation hall. When Chang Tianqing thought of this, his eyes shone with a blazing light, and he became extremely excited. According to the historical records of the Formation Talisman sect, once the Formation Hall was activated, the person with the Talisman Stone would be able to control the entire Formation Hall. Whether it was the Formation faction or the Talisman faction, every senior master knew one thing. Whoever had the Talisman Stone and controlled the Formation Hall would be the new master of the Formation Talisman sect. Relying on the Talisman Stone and the Formation Hall, this person would be invincible, and all talisman masters would have to submit to him. This was because not only could this person decipher all formations and talisman techniques, he could also control all formations and talisman techniques. Talisman masters and talisman masters would have no room to retaliate in front of him. As long as I take the talisman stone and enter the formation hall will be under my control. I will be the new master of the Formation Talisman sect. All the formations and talisman techniques in the world won't be worth mentioning in front of me. At that time, forget about Zhuge Shaosheng. Even the Stargate won't be able to do anything to me. With one command, your entire sect will be finished. Let's see if you still dare to order me around. Chang Tianqing was extremely excited. In order to seize the Formation faction, he had no choice but to rely on the Stargate. The Stargate was one of the 8 gates. Chang Tianqing could only be a yes man in front of them. However, Chang Tianqing knew all the formations and talisman techniques of the Stargate like the back of his hand. This was because the Stargate floated above the 7 divine mountains. Once he controlled the formation hall and the talisman stone, he could destroy the 7 divine mountains. Then, the entire Stargate would be destroyed. In fact, the strange power on Chang Tianqing's body didn't come directly from Bai Jie. Bai Jie couldn't appear in front of Chang Tianqing. He was secretly helping Chang Tianqing in the name of the Stargate. Bai Jie had to maintain his righteous and just image in the cultivation world. Therefore, he couldn't leave behind any evidence for the cultivators to doubt him. Otherwise, he would lose his prestige. The flickering white light on Chang Tianqing's body was already the greatest help that Bai Jie could provide. Any more, and people would be suspicious. Although Chang Tianqing had the talisman stone that could break all formations and talisman techniques, the talisman stone wasn't invincible. Once it was used, the amount of spiritual power it consumed was quite shocking. Even with Chang Tianqing's body unification stage cultivation, he wouldn't be able to endure it after using it once or twice. However, things would be different with the Formation Hall. With the help of the Formation Hall, he would be able to freely enter any sect in the world. Chang Tianqing originally wanted to directly control Lu Dei to kill Feng Mu. Without Feng Mu, he could borrow the help of the experts of the Stargate to break the Formation Hall. Then, he could figure out how to activate the Formation Hall himself. However, if Feng Mu could activate the Formation Hall for him, then he wouldn't have to worry about figuring it out himself. Feng Mu, since you trust your master Lu so much, then I'll let him treat you well. Chang Tianqing clenched the talisman stone in his hand. Chapter 479. The Array sect had gathered countless symbol masters. There were Hotion symbol masters, Middle Heaven symbol masters, and Sciention symbol masters. There were also many symbol grandmasters and countless Stargate members among them. The spies that the symbol grandmaster had sent to the Array sect had their own missions, so they did not come to watch the Array talisman competition. These spies followed the original plan and guided the symbol grandmaster's members through the safe route to attack the Array sect's various strongholds. However, all the Array sect's disciples seemed to have evaporated into thin air, leaving them empty-handed. At this moment, the symbol grandmaster's members were like wild wolves that had entered the house. They were originally prepared to slaughter the Array sect's disciples, but they could not find anyone. With nowhere to vent their murderous intent, they began to use their symbol arts to destroy the Array sect's buildings and formations. The entire Array sect had been reduced to a scene of devastation. Flames soared into the sky, and thick smoke billowed. All the Array sect's disciples hid in the Array Hall. They could clearly see the tragic state of the Array sect, and every Array sect disciple was filled with endless rage. Their sects had been invaded, and in order to avoid casualties, they could only watch as their homes were destroyed. This kind of humiliation made everyone extremely angry. Why don't we go out and fight them? That's right. Are we supposed to just watch as the symbol grandmaster's members trample on our Array sect? Many Array sect disciples were hot-blooded, and the hatred between the Array sect and the symbol grandmaster's members was deep in their bones. When the Array sect disciples saw the symbol grandmaster's reckless behavior, they could not wait to go out and fight the symbol grandmaster's members for 300 rounds. Quiet, the sect master has said that we must stay here and wait for an opportunity. Once the opportunity comes, it'll be the time for us to make a move. Cheng Zhua had left the 8th level of the Array Hall and arrived in the middle of all the disciples. Now that Luo Feilong and Ji Wenkai were no longer around, Cheng Zhua had become the leader of the culmination and Hotion disciples. The 8 trigrams array diagram in the Array Hall emitted an ancient aura. A vast and majestic aura surged forth and gradually pressed onto Mu Yu's body. This power was so vast that it seemed to be able to destroy everything in the world. Mu Yu felt a sense of danger. Zhuge Xiaosheng and the others kept using their own array techniques to guide the aura, directing most of the aura's power to themselves. At the same time, he also paid attention to Situ Yangtian's movements from time to time. The soul array was controlled by Mu Yu. At this moment, Situ Yangtian should be under Mu Yu's control with his help. The array patterns on Mu Yu's hands were vibrating faster and faster, to the point of being dazzled. Everyone could only see the shadows of Mu Yu's fingers, but not his actual movements. However, lines of formation patterns flowed out from his fingertips, resonating with this aura. In the beginning, Mu Yu had been able to withstand this aura. However, as time passed, the pressure exerted by the aura flowing out from the 8 trigrams array grew stronger and stronger. Mu Yu felt as if someone was constantly pressing down on his body, and the flow of spiritual energy in his body was becoming slower and slower. He closed his eyes and tried his best to communicate with the entire Array Hall in this majestic aura. At this moment, the Array Hall was still in a state of resuscitation. Even so, the aura that was spreading out was already so terrifying. It would probably be even more difficult in the future. After an hour, mysterious array patterns suddenly rushed out of the 8 trigrams array. These array patterns, one black and one white, intertwined with each other, forming ribbon-like shapes in the air. They began to revolve around Mu Yu. With the appearance of these array patterns, everyone felt the pressure on their bodies increase again. They understood that this was the time when the Array Hall truly entered the activation stage. It was as if a huge mountain was pressing down on Mu Yu's chest. Mu Yu's body trembled violently, and his face flushed red. He gritted his teeth and persevered, enduring all the terrifying pressure. The Array Heavenly Tao already knew about his situation. It also knew that at least 20 Sciention Array Masters were needed to withstand this pressure. However, Mu Qinghong was already unconscious. With one less person, it was equivalent to bearing an additional portion of pressure. This immense pressure made it hard for him to breathe. Mu Yu persevered. His hand movements also gradually slowed down. However, there were still black and white array patterns flying out from his fingers, merging into the ancient array patterns of the 8 trigrams array. Mu Yu's attention was completely focused on the black and white array patterns. The black and white array patterns coming out of the 8 trigrams array were incomplete. It was as if some parts were missing. Mu Yu needed to merge his own array patterns into it and rearrange them to complete it. The powerful pressure came again. Mu Yu spat out a mouthful of blood. This pressure was already too much for him to bear. At this moment, he felt as if he was a small boat in a stormy sea. Countless waves were crashing against him, and he could break apart at any time. Fengmu, how are you? If you really can't do it, stop. Zhuge Xiaosheng said worriedly. The 8 trigrams array was controlled by Mu Yu. Only Mu Yu could decide whether to stop or not. They could only do their best to help Mu Yu share the pressure. However, they couldn't stop. Once they stopped, all the pressure would fall on Mu Yu and shatter him into pieces. I can hold on. Mu Yu's eyes were filled with tenacity. He couldn't give up in the face of a great enemy. Once he gave up, the Array sect would be annihilated under the combined attacks of the Talisman Grandmaster and Stargate. Although Mu Yu didn't have much affection for the Array sect, this was a promise he made to the Array Heavenly Tao. He learned the supreme Array techniques from the Array Heavenly Tao. The Array Heavenly Tao even helped him save Deadwood Daddy's soul from dissipating. He even comprehended the essence of the 9 heavenly sword from the Array Heavenly Tao. This was enough for him to persevere for the Array sect. More and more black and white runes flashed out from the 8 trigrams array. They were densely packed and had already wrapped Mu Yu's entire body. The mysterious runes came one after another and were arranged in an orderly manner. However, there would be a gap after a short while. Mu Yu needed to calculate these gaps according to the runes of the Array Palace and use his own spiritual energy to fill in the gaps. This was a rather complicated process. Mu Yu's speed was already quite fast, but his face was getting paler and paler. The pressure on his body was getting stronger and stronger. Finally, the load on his body reached a limit. The powerful pressure from the Array Palace caused cracks to appear on Mu Yu's skin. It was as if it was about to collapse. But at this time, Mu Yu's dantian gushed out a pure black and white spiritual power. These 2 black and white spiritual powers constantly drilled out from the various meridians in his body. The black spiritual power devoured the tissues that were crushed by the spiritual power of the 8 trigrams diagram, while the white spiritual power continuously regenerated the meridians in his body. The pain of being reborn appeared on Mu Yu's body again. Mu Yu couldn't even condense his fingers anymore. He could only rely on his will to force the runes out of his body and merge them into the 8 trigrams Array Palace's black and white runes. The black and white runes had already covered Mu Yu's entire body. Zhuge Xiaosheng and the others couldn't see Mu Yu's current situation. They could only wait anxiously and try their best to share the pressure from the Array Palace on themselves. They tried their best to reduce the burden on Mu Yu. Mu Yu was wrapped in the black and white runes in the sphere. The black and white energies were swimming around his body, resisting the powerful pressure from the Array Palace. Gradually, the 8 trigrams Array Palace stopped surging out. All of the runes were intertwined and were slowly being filled in by Mu Yu. The vast aura from the 8 trigrams Array Palace was originally scattered. However, as the runes in Mu Yu's hand continued to merge, the scattered aura seemed to be summoned by something and started to gather together. It was as if the layers of fog were suddenly pushed aside. Everyone felt that something in their surroundings was becoming clearer. This kind of thing was hard to explain, but everyone could clearly feel that the Array Hall was trembling slightly. Dawn! A clear and simple sound reverberated with Mu Yu as the center. It was like the vibration of a bell, causing everyone to be invigorated. The black and white runes were gradually fusing together. The speed of rotation was also getting faster and faster. In the end, the runes couldn't be seen anymore. All of the runes had turned into illusions. Following that, they seemed to have turned into the purest black and white aura. The black and white were chasing each other playfully. Mu Yu's entire body had already disappeared within the 8 trigrams array palace. Zhuge Xiaoxing's face was filled with excitement. He could clearly feel the ripples coming from the array palace. This was the sign that the array palace was about to open. He didn't think that Mu Yu would be able to withstand the pressure of the array palace and successfully open it. The black and white aura seemed to be boiling. In the end, it suddenly shrank inwards. All of the black and white aura was actually absorbed into Mu Yu's body. Mu Yu's entire body was revealed within the array palace. His eyes were very strange. The left flashed with a white light, while the right flashed with a black light. He just sat cross-legged within the 8 trigrams array palace. It was as if he had become one with the array palace. Mu Yu also had a trace of understanding in his heart. After the spiritual energy in his body was infected by the netherworld grass death aura and life aura, it turned into black and white aura. The yin and yang of the 8 trigrams array palace was also black and white aura. In the blink of an eye, his life and death aura was also black and white. Even the 2 ends of the spirit chi eye were the same. The spirit chi eye of the Luo Qin Mountain was white, while the one that trapped the white ape demon king was black. Everything in the world seemed to be unable to escape the restriction of the black and white aura. Mu Yu seemed to have understood something. The black and white aura represented the most primitive balance in the world. At this moment, the entire array palace was emitting a solemn aura. Both the talisman masters and the array masters of the array faction could feel the spells in their body trembling slightly. It was as if they couldn't wait to be displayed. The array palace could control the spells of the array masters and talisman masters. Once the array palace was activated, no array master or talisman master dared to disobey. The array palace has been activated. Everyone, pay attention to protect Feng Mu. He is now the array eye of the array palace. He is very weak and cannot be harmed in any way. Even if we have to risk our lives, we must kill the people from the talisman sect. Zhuge Xiaoxing said solemnly. Yes, all the Xiantian array masters did not dare to be negligent and responded one after another. Master Lu was standing behind Mu Yu and happened to be in Zhuge Xiaoxing's blind spot. He suddenly raised his head and his lifeless eyes landed on Mu Yu. Rays of murderous cold light vaguely appeared in his hands. These cold lights were all pointed at Mu Yu. However, Zhuge Xiaoxing and Mu Yu still did not notice it. Chapter 480. The array hall floated in mid-air like a sacred immortal palace. Both talisman masters and array masters were in awe of it. After it was activated, a bright white light shot up into the sky, covering the body with a layer of hazy light. It was solemn and holy, causing the hearts of all those who entered the array sect to tremble slightly. Chang Tianqing looked at the array hall excitedly. It was one of the 2 supreme treasures of the array talisman sect. He had the array talisman stone in his hand. As long as he could gain control of the array hall, he would be the new leader of the array talisman sect. The control of the array hall was still in the hands of Mu Yu. Chang Tianqing did not take the out-of-body Mu Yu seriously at all. In his opinion, he only needed to enter the 8 trigrams of the array hall with the array talisman stone, and he would be able to take control of the array hall from Mu Yu and become a leader. The only leader of the array talisman sect was 1 in a million. He controlled all the array and talisman techniques in the world. All the Khanate array masters and Khanate talisman masters would kneel at his feet and listen to his orders. When the time came, he would lead the array talisman sect back to glory and become one of the 9 sects of the past. The biggest failure of the array talisman sect was that it had 2 leaders. Each of them had a supreme treasure. They restricted each other, and it was easy to have disagreements. The 2 of you went your separate ways and caused the array talisman sect to collapse. Today, I will revive the array talisman sect and become the new leader. Chang Tianqing laughed and stepped onto the stairway to heaven. However, the stairway to heaven trembled. Every section of the stairway to heaven began to move rapidly, emitting two rays of light, one black and one white. It seemed chaotic and disorderly, but contained endless mysteries. Do you think the stairway to heaven is a place you can climb as you please? Black and white formation patterns floated in Mu Yu's eyes, which contrasted with the light on the stairway to heaven. He could clearly see Chang Tianqing and all the other Khanate Talisman Masters outside the array hall. He already knew Chang Tianqing's plan. He also knew that the reason why Chang Tianqing did not directly climb the stairway to heaven was because he was waiting for Mu Yu to fully activate the array hall so that he could take over and reap the benefits. The array hall is indeed a mysterious existence. We have to treat the guests of the Talisman sect well. Mu Yu sat cross-legged on the black and white yin and yang qi. The black and white formation patterns shot out from his hands and disappeared into the void. In the blink of an eye, they covered every step of the stairway. The stairway to heaven had changed. Every step of the stairway to heaven was filled with large and small mysterious formations, which were specially used to block the advance of Talisman Masters. As soon as these Talisman Masters followed Chang Tianqing up the stairway to heaven, all kinds of strange illusory arrays and killing arrays swept towards them. Everyone, follow me closely. There's no need to be afraid of these formations. Chang Tianqing took out the Array Talisman Stone. The Array Talisman Stone was unable to break through the Array Hall's array. However, the Heaven Stairway's array formation was created by Mu Yu. Thus, the array formation instantly lost its effect in front of the Array Talisman Stone. Chang Tianqing began to deduce the next step with every step he ascended. His understanding of Talisman Dao was similar to Zhuge Xiaoxing's understanding of Array Dao. Although he was not as good as Zhuge Xiaoxing, there was not much difference. His speed of ascending the stairway to heaven was rather fast. Everyone followed behind him and waited for the stairway to heaven. However, the length of each stairway to heaven was limited and could not accommodate all the Talisman Masters. They quickly divided into several groups and waited for instructions from the Talisman Masters in front of them on different stairways to heaven. However, the stairway to heaven was constantly changing. The 5 or 6 people who followed Chang Tianqing were fine. However, when the others followed Chang Tianqing's path, they found that they had already lost him. This was all in Mu Yu's plan. His goal was to disperse all the Khanate Talisman Masters and then kill them one by one. There was only one Array Talisman Stone. The other Khanate Talisman Masters did not have Chang Tianqing's ability to crack the array. They could only face the killing array that Mu Yu had set for them. Sect Master, it's time for you to go to the stairway to heaven to kill these Talisman Masters. I will help you from here. Mu Yu's voice was very distant, causing Zhuge Xiaoxing's soul to be startled. All right, Zhuge Xiaoxing turned and glanced at Situ Yangtian. Then he looked at Master Lu and said, Junior Brother Lu, you stay here and protect Feng Mu. The rest of you, follow me. The array hall has been opened. We will not let these Talisman Masters return. Zhuge Xiaoxing's face was filled with endless killing intent. The array faction had come in a menacing manner. They had been forced to retreat in order to open the array hall. Now that the array hall had been opened, they no longer had any scruples and could continue to fight the Khanate Talisman Masters. Apart from Master Lu, all the Khanate Talisman Masters had left the array hall, including Situ Yangtian. Soon, only Master Lu was left in the array hall. He was staring blankly at Mu Yu. Mu Yu's back was facing him, and he knew nothing about it. Master Lu did not make a move for a long time. Zhou Jinglin wanted Master Lu to do it directly, but Chang Tianqing told him not to kill Mu Yu first. Once Mu Yu died, the array hall would be closed again. At that time, it would take a lot of effort to open the array hall. Without the help of the array Heavenly Dao, it would take Chang Tianqing a long time to study the activation method of the array hall. It might even be impossible to activate it. Chang Tianqing did not want to waste any more time. Zhuge Xiaoxing and the other Talisman Masters had already rushed up the stairway to heaven. They were much more familiar with the stairway than the Talisman Master. In an instant, all the Khanate Talisman Masters had found the lost Khanate Talisman Masters. The formation that blotted out the sky and covered the earth fell towards the Symbol Master. But the Symbol Master was not an idiot. After being slightly surprised, he quickly went up to meet the formation. The formation patterns and the seal patterns collided with each other, creating blazing sparks on the sky stairway. The Talisman Masters collided, creating blazing sparks once again. Talisman Masters and Talisman Masters were locked in a fierce battle on every stairway to heaven. The Talisman Masters were originally gathered together, but they were caught off guard by the sudden appearance of the Talisman Masters. In order to avoid the Talisman Masters, they could only jump to other stairways to heaven. In an instant, almost all the stairways to heaven were filled with Talisman Masters and Talisman Masters fighting each other. In particular, every stairway to heaven was reinforced by Mu Yu's own Talisman Masters. Even if his Talisman Masters could not do anything to them, it was enough to create obstacles for them. Not to mention, they had to deal with the Khanate Talisman Masters who were familiar with the stairway to heaven. "I'll kill all of you thieves." Immortal Master Chihua's formation enveloped the two Khanate Talisman Masters. Inside his formation, billowing heat waves swept over as if to tear the Talisman Masters to shreds. The two Talisman Masters' expressions changed drastically. They were shocked to find that their attacks were no match for an Array Master. This stairway was no longer a simple battle between an Array Master and a Talisman Master. Muyu had also used the Array Palace to create an Array Master. Therefore, for a moment, an Array Master had the upper hand against two Talisman Masters. Moreover, the most powerful point was that all the Talisman Masters were unable to fly while climbing the heavenly stairway. However, the Array Masters were not restricted by this restriction. Therefore, the Array Masters were much more nimble. Their earth-shattering array techniques were simply too much for some Talisman Masters to bear. Zhuge Xiaosheng ran toward Chang Tiancheng, but Mu Yu's voice followed him like a shadow. "Sect Master, Chang Tiancheng has the formation runestone. You're not his match. You deal with those Khanate Talisman Masters. But if no one stops Chang Tiancheng, he will soon reach the Array Palace." Zhuge Xiaosheng said. "Don't worry. His formation runestone can't do anything to me. Besides, I still have Master Lu to protect me." Mu said. Zhuge Xiaosheng gritted his teeth and glanced at Chang Tiancheng, who was not far away. Finally, his figure rushed towards the four Talisman Masters beside him. As the Sect Master, Zhuge Xiaosheng's array techniques had reached an extraordinary level. In just a face-to-face confrontation, the four Talisman Masters were sent flying and fell down the heavenly stairway. "You have to pay a price." Zhuge Xiaosheng's face was cold. His figure disappeared from the heavenly stairway and reappeared outside the heavenly stairway. Outside the heavenly stairway, there were four Khanate Talisman Masters guarding the rear. There was no restriction of the heavenly stairway here. Muyu did not set up a formation here, but he knew that Zhuge Xiaosheng was enough to deal with these people. The four innate Talisman Masters rose to their feet and, without saying a word, unleashed their talisman techniques that blotted out the sky and enveloped Zhuge Xiaosheng. Zhuge Xiaosheng waved his hand, and countless runes of formations rushed out from his hand, roaring and rushing towards the Talisman Masters. Zhuge Xiaosheng shook again. The powerful formation runes turned into a huge white tiger. It directly bit the shoulder of a Talisman Master who was only at the Severed Spirit stage and tore the Talisman Master into pieces at once. Zhuge Xiaosheng had the cultivation of the form synthesis stage. In front of him, a Talisman Master at the Severed Spirit stage could only be killed in seconds. The explosive power of a Formation Master and a Talisman Master was quite high in a short period of time. Life and death could be decided in the blink of an eye. Soon, two Talisman Masters at the Form Synthesis stage jumped out from the Talisman Grandmaster and fought fiercely with Zhuge Xiaosheng. The remaining Heaven Talisman Masters of the Talisman Sect and the members of the Heavenly Star Sect broke through the layers of obstructions and flashed towards the Formation Hall. However, They were surprised to notice that the formation hall that had been destroyed had transformed into numerous formation markings at this moment and had started to repair itself. You people of the Stargate should be taught a lesson. After Muyu communicated with the formation hall, all the formations of the formation sect were under his control. Even though many of the formations have been destroyed, the foundations of all the formations of the formation sect were connected. The source of these formations was the formation hall. He could use the formation hall to repair these formations in an instant. A powerful killing array suddenly enveloped the people of the Heavenly Star sect. These people didn't know how to break arrays like the Talisman Masters. After being trapped by the killing array, they immediately began to panic. One after another, they began to use their own magic weapons to resist. However, at this moment, Chengzhua had already led a large group of Formation Sect disciples to every corner of the Formation Sect by Muyu. These Formation Sect disciples had been suppressing their anger when they saw the people of the Talisman Grandmaster acting recklessly. Now that their enemies were right in front of them, they did not hesitate to use all kinds of formations to attack. Kill all the people of the Talisman Grandmaster. Chengzhua roared angrily and took the lead to pounce on a disciple of the Talisman Grandmaster. A sword light flashed, and the Talisman Grandmaster's head fell to the ground. Kill! The sound of formations colliding with talisman techniques could be heard everywhere in the Formation Sect. The flames of war could be triggered at any moment. All the disciples of the Formation Sect were fighting for their sect. Chang Tianqing originally had 5 Talisman Masters by his side. However, only Zhou Jinglin managed to catch up in time. The others were a breath late and were led astray by the celestial stairway. Chang Tianqing did not care about the others. To him, even if everyone died, as long as he could use the Talisman Stone to control the Formation Hall and become the sect master of the Formation Talisman Sect, this loss would be worth it. The flames of war burned for 4 hours. The disciples of the Talisman Grandmaster were caught off guard by the disciples of the Formation Sect. In addition, this was the home ground of the Formation Sect. With Muyu's secret help, the disciples of the Talisman Grandmaster and Stargate suffered heavy casualties. However, the Formation Sect had also paid a heavy price. Many of their disciples had lost their lives in this battle. Chang Tianqing and Zhou Jinglin finally ascended the celestial stairway. They had spent 4 hours and walked no less than 50 steps. The complexity of the celestial stairway was beyond their imagination. Chang Tianqing looked at the door of the Formation Hall in front of him, and his heart began to pound involuntarily. The Formation Hall. You mind? The two of them stepped into the Formation Hall. Then, Zhou Jinglin saw Muyu in the middle of the Formation Hall. Finally, his gaze landed on Master Lu, who was standing behind Muyu. Zhou Jinglin's lips curled into a sinister smile. Chapter 481. The flames of war could be seen everywhere in the originally tranquil and peaceful Array faction. The confrontation between Array Masters and Talisman Masters produced blazing sparks in the air. All kinds of magic techniques were flying all over the sky, and the multicolored light illuminated the sky of the Array faction with a myriad of colors. And all of this was isolated outside the Array Hall. At this moment, there were only 4 people left in the Array Hall. In the Array Hall, Chang Tianqing looked at the 8 trigrams array diagram with a glowing face. He looked excited. Then he looked at Muyu in the 8 trigrams array diagram. His eyes were full of ridicule. Kid, why are you here alone? I thought that old man Zhuge Shaosheng would protect you at all times. Chang Tianqing sneered. Muyu calmly looked at Chang Tianqing. The black and white light in his eyes was still blooming. When the black and white eyes met Chang Tianqing's, even Chang Tianqing couldn't help but feel an irresistible sense of fear. That gaze was like the purest gaze of life and death in the world, making people unable to look straight at it. Alone? Why? Have you become senile? It's enough to have Master Lu protecting me. Muyu's voice was still so calm, and he didn't notice anything strange. The 8 trigrams array diagram's light enveloped his body, making him look very elegant. His whole person exuded an ethereal aura. Ha ha! Chang Tianqing and Zhou Jinglin laughed at the same time. They looked at Master Lu behind Mu Yu with ridicule. Master Lu is indeed a loyal array master of array faction. This is admirable. I really hope he can protect you well. Mu Yu didn't expect that 3 of the 4 people in the array hall were standing on the same side. What do you mean? Mu Yu frowned. But at this moment, he suddenly felt uneasy. A strong sense of crisis instantly shrouded his heart. Then, there was a strange movement behind him. A powerful array pattern rushed towards him with a whistling sound. It was so fast that Mu Yu couldn't react at all. Mu Yu only felt pain in his chest. An old hand instantly pierced through his chest. The spirit-severing stage array pattern instantly pervaded Mu Yu's body, constantly invading Mu Yu's vitality, making Mu Yu widen his eyes. Master Lu, how did you? The black and white light in Mu Yu's eyes flickered twice before it gradually dissipated, revealing his clear eyes. His eyes were filled with shock as he turned his head with difficulty to meet Lu Xianxu's lifeless eyes. Seeing the runes flickering in Lu Xianxu's eyes, he instantly understood and slowly spat out a few words. God's soul rune? Huh, that was right. Do you still naively think that Situ Yang Tian is a spy? You're wrong. Actually, Master Lu, whom you respect the most, is the one who's being controlled by us. You didn't expect this move, did you? Chang Tianqing laughed wildly. Situ Yangtian's memories had only been erased. He had never been controlled by the Talisman Grandmaster. I always thought that it was Situ Yangtian and Mu Qinghong. I didn't expect. Mu Yu's mouth overflowed with blood, and the clothes on his chest were soaked with blood. At this moment, Master Lu's hand was suffused with cold, killing intent. The spirit power of the spirit-severing stage kept flowing in Mu Yu's body, destroying all the meridians in Mu Yu's body. After guarding against so many people, he still couldn't guard against his own people. Situ Yantian has indeed made himself very unlikable, hasn't he? In fact, he's the one who's loyal to the Talisman Grandmaster. He's always suspected that Mu Qinghong and Master Lu are spies. So he's very close to Mu Qinghong because he wants to find out something from Mu Qinghong. However, even Mu Qinghong doesn't know that Master Lu is the real spy. He can't get anything on Master Lu and even thinks that you're someone we sent. Zhou Jinglin snickered. City Yantian had always disliked Mu Yu because Mu Yu and Master Lu were very close. He thought that Mu Yu was a spy deliberately planted by the Talisman Grandmaster for the final attack plan. So he mocked Mu Yu everywhere. I understand. What a vicious plan. Mu Yu looked at Master Lu's eyes and sighed heavily. He didn't expect that at the last moment, he would fall into the hands of the person he trusted the most. Ever since Master Lu knew of Mu Yu's talent, he had been doing his best to help Mu Yu. He wanted to cultivate Mu Yu into the future pillar of the Talisman Grandmaster sect. He had been fighting for the rise of the Talisman Grandmaster sect all his life, but he didn't expect that he would become the person who destroyed the Talisman Grandmaster sect. Ha ha ha, lowly and pitiful worm. You want to fight with me? Go back and learn for 8 or 10 years before coming back. Chang Tianqing looked up to the sky and laughed proudly. So what if the Talisman Grandmaster sect won this year's talisman competition? So what if Ling Zheng and Mo Zimming were killed by the people of the Talisman Grandmaster sect? As long as he obtained the Array Hall, he would become the strongest person in both the Talisman and Array Dao. One day, he would bring the Talisman Grandmaster back to the glory days of the Talisman sect and revive the Talisman Grandmaster sect. At that time, wouldn't the Star Gate and the 8 Gates have to be wary of him? He laughed arrogantly and placed all his attention on the 8 trigrams array diagram. As long as he took the Talisman Stone and walked into the 8 trigrams array diagram, he, Chang Tianqing, would become the new sect master of the Talisman sect. Everyone would have to submit to him. The sects on the 3 continents were filled with array formations. He could paralyze all the sects with a single thought. Zhou Jinglin, wake up our loyal Master Lu. I want to see what Master Lu will do when he finds out that I killed his most precious disciple, Feng Mu. Chang Tianqing looked at Master Lu and Mu Yu with a sneer. He had been unhappy with these two for a long time. Mu Yu's appearance disrupted his plan to play with the Talisman Grandmaster sect and caused a slight deviation in his plan to unify the Talisman and Array Dao. At first, he wanted to kill Feng Mu, but then a mysterious voice told him that he had to borrow Feng Mu's power to open the Array Palace. Chang Tianqing was not familiar with that mysterious voice. He thought it was someone from Stargate. He hesitated for a long time before he stopped himself from having Master Lu kill Feng Mu. But it was no longer important. No matter how much trouble this kid caused, he still fell into his own hands. Even if Zhuge Shaosheng was here, as long as he used the Talisman Stone, he could kill Zhuge Shaosheng. Even if it was that mysterious person from Stargate that secretly helped him, Chang Tianqing was confident that once he became the Talisman sect's leader, the other party would not dare to order him around. Chang Tianqing did not know that the person who helped him was the master of the third layer palace, Bai Jie. All right, our dear Master Lu, it's time for you to wake up. There was a malicious smile on Zhou Jinglin's lips. A light flashed through his eyes again, shooting into Master Lu's eyes like a bolt of lightning. Master Lu's lifeless eyes gradually regained their clarity. He looked around in confusion. He had no idea what had just happened. But when he saw his right hand pass through Mu Yu's back, he was stunned. Feng Mu? Master Lu was stunned. He looked at his right hand in shock. His right hand was still flashing with overbearing runes. His hand still had the temperature of Mu Yu's blood. It was so real, it was not fake. How could I? He retracted his hand. A bloody hole appeared on Mu Yu's back. It was a ghastly sight. Master Lu took 2 steps back in fear. His eyes were filled with shock. Mu Yu turned around. His face was as white as a sheet of paper. He looked at Master Lu's panicked expression and shook his head. His entire body swayed, and he almost lost his balance. Feng Mu, this was done by me? But I don't know, Feng Mu. Master Lu's face was filled with endless panic. He looked at Chang Tianqing and Zhou Jinglin and suddenly understood what had happened. Since yesterday, he had been in a state of mental unease. He originally thought that he was worried because the Talisman sect was about to attack the Array sect. But now he knew that was not the case. Zhou Jinglin, you controlled me? Master Lu tried his best to recall. He wanted to know when he had been controlled. But no matter how hard he racked his brains, he could not remember anything. Zhou Jinglin was very cautious about controlling Master Lu. He had erased this part of his memory long ago. What? How does it feel to kill your most valued disciple? Zhou Jinglin laughed wildly. He felt refreshed when he saw Master Lu's panicked expression. They had lost to the Array sect in the Array Talisman competition. They had also lost 2 extreme immortals, Ling Zheng and Mo Ziming. They could only get back at them now. No, this is not real. Master Lu's entire body collapsed. He was extremely dispirited. He felt as if he had aged 10 years in an instant. He had worked hard for the Array sect all his life. He wanted the Array sect to regain its former glory. But he did not expect that he would become the center of the Array sect. He had personally destroyed the only hope of saving the Array sect. Master Lu felt as if a bucket of cold water had extinguished the last bit of flame in his heart. Cold air surged up from the bottom of his feet. He actually did such a thing to Feng Mu. Feng Mu, forgive me. Master Lu wanted to rush over to check on Mu Yu's injuries. But he stopped. He was worried that if he was controlled again, it would cause even more damage to Mu Yu. That would be even worse. His eyes reignited with anger. He looked at Chang Tianqing and Zhou Jinglin. I will fight it out with you. Master Lu roared. Majestic Array runes instantly surged towards Chang Tianqing. But these Array runes dissipated in the air before they could reach Chang Tianqing. Chang Tianqing had an Array Talisman Stone. He had completely restrained his Array techniques. It is impossible to kill me. How can your Array techniques injure me? Chang Tianqing laughed. At the same time, he waved his hand. A tyrannical talisman technique shot out from his hand and struck Master Lu's chest, sending him flying. You value the Array sect so much? Then I will personally let you kill Feng Mu. What do you think? Zhou Jinglin laughed evilly. Go cut off Feng Mu's head. If he killed Feng Mu now, Chang Tianqing would be able to take over the array hall before it closed. No, I would rather die than do that. Master Lu had already stretched out his hand and slapped his own head. He wanted to die. He could not allow himself to harm Mu Yu and destroy the hope of the array sect. But Master Lu was horrified to find that his hand had abruptly stopped. He could not control it at all. He wanted to struggle, but he could not. Then he slowly stood up. A short blade appeared in his hand as he walked towards Mu Yu. No! Stop! Stop! Feng Mu, leave. I can't control myself. Master Lu roared. He did not lose consciousness this time. Zhou Jinglin allowed him to retain his consciousness. He wanted Master Lu to see with his own eyes how he killed Mu Yu. Mu Yu no longer had the ability to move. His chest heaved up and down. After all, Master Lu was a spirit-severing stage Xiantian array master. Not to mention the out-of-body stage Mu Yu. Even other Xiantian array masters might not be able to defend against his attack. Mu Yu could not hide at this moment. He could only watch as Master Lu got closer and closer, and then brandished his saber at him. Chang Tianqing and Zhou Jinglin both laughed wildly. They could already imagine the bloody scene of Mu Yu's head being separated from his identity. Although they didn't know why a person like Mu Yu would suddenly appear in the array faction, no matter how powerful this genius was, he was still just a fledgling. How could he possibly compete with these two sly old foxes? Master Lu felt that he was about to collapse. He could not bear to watch himself kill Feng Mu. He wanted to close his eyes, but his body was no longer under his control. Master Lu fell into deep despair and self-blame. Chapter 482. Qi. Blood splattered all over the ground. Chang Tianqing looked at the hand sticking out of his chest in disbelief. It was Zhou Jinglin's hand. Zhou Jinglin also looked at his right hand in shock, and his laughter stopped abruptly. Just as Master Lu waved the sharp blade at Mu Yu's neck, his own right hand involuntarily gathered a huge force and directly penetrated Chang Tianqing in front of him. Why? The arrogant smile on Zhou Jinglin's face disappeared and was replaced by shock and confusion. Why did he suddenly attack Chang Tianqing? The smile on Chang Tianqing's face froze. His attention was all on Feng Mu, and he was even imagining the scene of Feng Mu's blood splattering in the array hall. Then, he would immediately take over the array hall after Feng Mu died. He waited for all this arrogantly, not guarding against Zhou Jinglin behind him at all. However, he didn't expect that he would be secretly attacked by someone he trusted. Master Lu's sharp blade stopped an inch away from Mu Yu's neck and didn't go any further. At this moment, black and white array patterns flickered on Mu Yu's body, and his pale face gradually returned to normal. The big hole in his chest suddenly fell off like fragments, and the blood on his clothes slowly turned into black and white array patterns and drifted away. At this moment, Mu Yu didn't have a trace of injury and dispiritedness. I told you that I have a talent for acting. I should be elected as the best actor. Mu Yu straightened his collar, then playfully stretched out a hand, flicked the sharp blade in Master Lu's hand, and said, Master Lu, your sharp blade is too blunt. You haven't opened the seal. Master Lu's shocked expression turned into pleasant surprise. He found that he couldn't move, but he didn't care so much. The most important thing was that Feng Mu was safe and sound. He asked excitedly, Feng Mu, are you okay? How could something happen to me? Mu Yu touched his neck. Many people want to cut my neck with a knife. My neck is thick. Chang Tianqing abruptly turned his head and sent Zhou Jinglin flying with a palm strike. At the same time, the array glyphstone in his hand emitted a black light which shot into Zhou Jinglin's body. After a long time, he said resentfully, Divine Soul Array? Zhou Jinglin's body was struck by the black light from the talisman stone. An array pattern drilled out from his body and shattered into pieces. He was horrified. He didn't understand when he had fallen into the Divine Soul Array. What? Was there need to be so surprised? Don't you know that courtesy demands reciprocity? Mu Yu patted Master Lu's shoulder and said leisurely, So you're allowed to control my dear Master Lu with the Divine Soul Talisman. but I'm not allowed to use the divine soul array to control your lackey? Impossible. How could you possibly find out about Master Lu? We obviously did it flawlessly. You can't possibly know that Master Lu is one of us. After all, Chang Tianqing was a cultivator at the combination stage. A huge amount of spiritual power gushed out of his body and began to heal his wounds. At the same time, he took out a handful of medicinal pills and swallowed them. You've always thought that you're infallible. Do you really think that everything is under your control? Mu Qinghong slowly walked over from behind the array hall. He quietly looked at his former master and said with a complicated expression, "Why are you fine too?" Chang Tianqing's face began to distort. "You were clearly struck by the god-vanquishing talisman and should have died. Even if Zhuge Shaosheng can temporarily suppress it, it's impossible for him to save you. You're too complacent and forgot an important thing. The talisman stone can break all the arrays and talisman techniques in the world. However, the array hall can control all the arrays and talisman techniques in the world, including the god-vanquishing talisman and the divine soul talisman." Mu Yu's eyes flashed. The array hall. Chang Tianqing's body froze. He had calculated everything, but he didn't consider the array hall. That's right, it's the array hall. When you stepped into the array hall, I used the divine soul array to control Zhou Jinglin. In front of the array hall, controlling Zhou Jinglin was more than enough. Even he didn't realize it. It's a pity that you have the talisman stone on you, so I can't control you. Otherwise, I would have directly controlled you to commit suicide and save myself so much trouble. Mu Yu curled his lips. This divine soul array was originally prepared for Situ Yang Tian, but Mu Yu had already expanded its scope and used it specifically to deal with Zhou Jinglin. Then how did you dodge Master Lu's attack? You clearly suspected that Situ Yang Tian was a spy. Why would you be wary of Master Lu? Why would he use the array hall to control Master Lu? Chang Tianqing still didn't understand. Did Master Lu tell you that I've always suspected Situ Yang Tian of being a spy? But I already knew that Situ Yang Tian wasn't a spy at all. I'm afraid that even Master Lu himself didn't know this. I've long suspected him. Mu Yu smiled slightly. Master Lu's face was full of shame. He asked in a daze, "Feng Mu, you've long suspected that I was the spy?" Then his expression dimmed, and he laughed self-deprecatingly. "The funny thing is that even I didn't know that I was a spy. I almost harmed you. You should have told the sect master earlier and let him kill me." "I am my Master Lu. Don't be disheartened." "I don't blame you, really. It's just that the people from the Talisman sect like to act so much, so we have to cooperate, right? We can only keep you in the dark for now." Mu Yu couldn't hide the smile on his face. When he activated the array hall, he had already obtained complete control of the array hall. He instantly seized the god-slaying talisman and divine soul talisman in Mu Qinghong and Master Lu's bodies and saved Mu Qinghong. Then, after Zhou Jinglin and Chang Tianqing entered the array hall, he secretly took control of Zhou Jinglin. Just a moment ago, Master Lu's action of killing Mu Yu, as well as the bleeding and other things, were all caused by Mu Yu using the illusion array. Even when Master Lu came to kill Mu Yu, it was controlled by Mu Yu and not Zhou Jinglin. The array hall's illusion array was perfect. Chang Tianqing couldn't detect it with his eyes alone. The array rune stone could break all the array techniques used on Chang Tianqing. But this array technique was used on himself by Mu Yu, so even Chang Tianqing couldn't detect anything strange. Good. Very good. But do you think this can stop me? The array rune stone in Chang Tianqing's hand emitted a gloomy black light, which looked very strange. In front of the array rune stone, all schemes and tricks are fleeting clouds. Die! Chang Tianqing roared and pounced on Mu Yu. Today, he had been fooled by Mu Yu again and again, so he had long accumulated a bellyful of anger. He had the array rune stone. His talisman technique was effective on others, but other people's array techniques were ineffective on him. Be careful! Master Lu shouted angrily and stood in front of Mu Yu. Although Chang Tianqing had the cultivation of the combination stage, and he couldn't stop him with the cultivation of the spirit severing stage, he didn't care so much. He almost became the center of the erase sect. Today, even if he died, he couldn't let Chang Tianqing hurt Mu Yu. Master Lu, if you really want to make up for your mistakes, go and kill Zhou Jinglin. I think Zhou Jinglin must be the person you want to kill the most. With a thought, Mu Yu left Mu Yu's side involuntarily. But Master Lu fell in front of Zhou Jinglin. He found that he had regained his freedom and looked at Mu Yu worriedly. However, Mu Yu had already taken a step back. At the same time, Chang Tianqing entered the 8 trigrams array with the array rune stone in his hand. The reason why Mu Yu didn't let Master Lu intervene was that in front of the array hall and the array rune stone, only he could completely resist Chang Tianqing. The pressure of the 8 trigrams array was very great. Master Lu didn't have the help of the array hall or the array rune stone. Even if he came, he couldn't help much. After Chang Tianqing entered the 8 trigrams array with the array rune stone in his hand, the 8 trigrams array seemed to sense something and began to flow. The black and white array patterns surged out again, surrounding Mu Yu and Chang Tianqing in the 8 trigrams array. Mu Chenghong also flashed to Master Lu's side and said, "Master Lu, let's kill him together." Zhou Jinglin's face was gloomy as he looked at Master Lu and Mu Chenghong. These two people were originally under his control, but who would have thought that there would be a careless mistake? He actually forgot about the powerful control method of the array hall and forcibly took away his control over these two people. Even he himself was controlled by Mu Yu. "Mu Guang, how dare you?" Zhou Jinglin fiercely reprimanded. The divine soul array in his body had already been broken by Chang Tianqing's array rune stone. Now, the three of them couldn't control each other. They could only use array techniques and talisman techniques to fight a good battle. "My name is Mu Chenghong. I am, and will be," Mu Chenghong said indifferently. "Don't talk nonsense. Zhou Jinglin, you almost caused me to destroy the array sect. You deserve to die." Master Lu already hated Zhou Jinglin to the bone. When he thought of the many sects and businesses he had been in contact with that had been lost for no reason, he understood that this was all because of Zhou Jinglin. There was no need to mention how angry he was in his heart. Zhou Jinglin turned and left. In order to prevent himself from being controlled by the divine soul array in the array hall, he had to leave the array hall. How could Master Lu and Mu Chenghong let him go? The sky full of thunder snakes appeared from Master Lu's hands and chased after Zhou Jinglin. Chang Tianqing looked at the groove in the center of the 8 trigrams array diagram and felt a burst of excitement in his heart. That groove just so happened to be compatible with the array rune stone in his hand. As long as he embedded the array rune stone, the entire array hall would be in his hands. At that time, he would be the new sect master of the array talisman sect. But before that, I have to kill you, so that there won't be any more problems. Chang Tianqing's face twisted. He had already summoned a black talisman paper in his hand. The talisman paper flashed with violent runes, as if something could not wait to drill out of it. Then, Chang Tianqing pointed his finger, and the black talisman suddenly split open. A black light flashed, and a terrifying black python wriggled and struggled. Its huge body squeezed out of the black talisman. This black python flicked its red tongue, and the aura it exuded turned out to be a 7th-rank demonic beast. A 7th-rank demonic beast was equivalent to a cultivator at the form synthesis stage. The black python's attack power was very strong. It was the talisman technique that Chang Tianqing relied on the most. It was also what he relied on to defeat the other innate talisman masters and become the sect master of the talisman sect. Boy, even if you break through to the form synthesis stage today, you won't be my opponent. The black python had already locked onto Mu Yu's aura. Then, with an insufferably arrogant hiss, it bit down on Mu Yu. The spiritual qi in the air seemed to be torn apart. The black python at the form synthesis stage was like a mountain pressing down on Mu Yu's body. Its terrifying aura poured down. Mu Yu's cultivation was still at the out-of-body stage, but he did not panic. Instead, he slowly stretched out a finger toward the black python. Chapter 483. The insufferably arrogant black serpent was pinned in the air by Mu Yu's finger. It still had its bloody mouth wide open, drooling, and its fangs were gleaming with cold light. A terrifying aura rushed towards Mu Yu's face, but it just stopped in the air and couldn't move an inch forward. Then Mu Yu pointed his finger at Chang Tianqing, and the black serpent turned its head abruptly and bit at Chang Tianqing. Chang Tianqing was shocked for a moment, and then he seemed to remember something. He snorted angrily, and the formation stone in his hand melted into a black light, which turned his black serpent into nothingness. Are you retarded? You can break the formation, and I can also control your talisman technique. You really don't change. Haven't you learned your lesson yet? Mu Yu said impatiently. Chang Tianqing was furious. He and Mu Yu were both controlling a supreme treasure of the formation talisman sect at the moment, and neither side could do anything to the other. To some extent, Chang Tianqing was at a disadvantage because he was a congenital talisman master at the form synthesis stage, and he himself had very powerful talisman techniques. Mu Yu was only at the out-of-body stage, and the two were not at the same level at all. But because of the formation hall, Chang Tianqing was equivalent to having one of his arms broken, and he was at the same level as Mu Yu. It couldn't be said that they were at the same level. Without talisman techniques, Chang Tianqing's cultivation was still at the form synthesis stage, which was 2 whole stages higher than Mu Yu. Even if Chang Tianqing's talisman techniques were ineffective and he couldn't be compared to ordinary cultivators at the form synthesis stage, it was more than enough to deal with an out-of-body stage cultivator like Mu Yu. Boy, even if I don't use talisman techniques, I can still crush you like an ant. Chang Tianqing sneered. He stepped forward and grabbed at Mu Yu like a ghost. But the formation pattern under Mu Yu's feet surged, and he disappeared directly. When he reappeared, he was already on the other side of the 8 trigrams formation. Mu Yu wasn't afraid of Chang Tianqing's talisman techniques, and he couldn't use array techniques on Chang Tianqing. However, it didn't mean that he couldn't use array techniques like the Big Dipper constellation array himself. He could still use the Big Dipper constellation formation on himself. Chang Tianqing's speed was quite fast. After all, he was a cultivator at the combination realm. He could suppress Mu Yu within a breath. However, Mu Yu is an 8 trigrams array diagram. The 8 trigrams array diagram's aura was hundreds of times stronger than Chang Tianqing's. If Mu Yu could withstand the 8 trigrams array diagram's aura, there was no need to mention Chang Tianqing. After a few consecutive dodges, the two of them crisscrossed in the 8 trigrams formation, turning into numerous phantoms. Mu Yu was not afraid of the other party's powerful pressure. His Big Dipper constellation formation could always narrowly avoid Chang Tianqing's pursuit. Playing hide-and-seek with me, Chang Tianqing was completely enraged. He moved his fingers and injected spiritual power into the runestone. Immediately, the runestone emitted a red light and covered the entire 8 trigrams array. Let's see how you're going to run. Chang Tianqing's runestone used the forbidden technique domain, which was much stronger than Ling Jing's. As long as Chang Tianqing did not take the initiative to cancel it, the forbidden technique domain had no time limit. The feeling that Mu Yu hated enveloped him again. His Big Dipper constellation formation had lost its effect, and he could no longer teleport. He controlled the array hall and had the ability to control all the array and talisman techniques in the world. However, the forbidden technique domain was the ability of the runestone. The runestone and the array hall were mutually reinforcing and restraining each other. Mu Yu could not control it. Die! Chang Tianqing roared, and a dagger appeared in his hand. He could only vent his anger by killing Mu Yu. Mu Yu also summoned his shadow clone sword and rushed forward fearlessly. Bang! Mu Yu was ruthlessly swept away by Chang Tianqing's aura. He did not gain any advantage in this fight. Although Chang Tianqing's attack was not fancy, Chang Tianqing was not Ling Zhong. In the face of the absolute suppression of the combination stage, Mu Yu could not withstand his attack at all. Mu Yu only felt a shock in his chest, and the spiritual power in his body was a little chaotic. Just a short exchange of blows had caused him to suffer a lot of internal injuries. However, Chang Tianqing was also seriously injured by Zhou Jinglin just now. That palm strike was almost fatal to him, so Chang Tianqing's strength was greatly weakened. This gave Mu Yu the ability to fight head-on with the other party. Mu Yu took out a rank 6 Imperial Wind Pill and swallowed it. Spells were ineffective here, but the effect of the pill was still there. The Imperial Wind Pill could make his speed as fast as the Spirit's Severing Stage, which was almost comparable to the injured Chang Tianqing. Chang Tianqing was very angry. He found that he could not do anything to Mu Yu in a short period of time. In addition to the huge injury on his chest, his aura had begun to gradually weaken. He knew that if he delayed any longer, he would definitely be the one to die. Mu Yu was confident that he could hold him back, so he did not let Master Lu help him. This was the most aggrieved battle Chang Tianqing had ever fought. He had powerful talisman techniques, but he could not do anything to Mu Yu. Now, even if both of them were free from the spell, Mu Yu's movement technique was still much more agile than his. In addition, he was injured, so he could hardly gain any advantage. Very good. I'll spare your life first. Chang Tianqing could not delay any longer. He rushed directly to the groove in the center of the 8 trigrams array. As long as he inlaid the rune stone in his hand on the 8 trigrams array, he could control the entire array hall. At that time, Mu Yu would not be able to control his array without the protection of the array hall. How would he fight with him? Chang Tianqing's speed was very fast. Mu Yu could not stop him at all. He could only watch as he pressed the rune stone down. The rune stone and the 8 trigrams array combined together. Instantly, the entire array hall began to tremble. The 8 trigrams array was not just a simple array pattern. Various runes of different colors appeared. The array pattern and runes exploded from the 8 trigrams array. An ancient aura swept out once again, wrapping up the 2 people in the 8 trigrams array. The 2 auras, one black and one white, chased each other and began to transform into a small yin-yang vortex. The yin-yang vortex seemed weak and powerless, but in its weakness, there was a strong and unstoppable force. The combination of strength and softness contained the mysterious laws of the heavenly Tao. It made people want to become one with it, but it was untouchable. The yin-yang vortex's black and white auras enveloped Mu Yu and Chang Tianqing. The 2 of them were in the 8 trigrams array. Even Chang Tianqing could not resist this vast and melodious aura. Then the yin-yang vortex became bigger and bigger, sucking the 2 of them into the vortex. Mu Yu felt as if he was experiencing the vastness and vastness of the human world. It was also as if he was looking at the flowers blooming and withering in the mortal world. His heart became empty. The strange yin-yang aura resonated with the black and white spiritual energy in his body. The black aura represented death, and the white aura represented new life. The 2 completely different auras repelled each other, attracted each other, and transformed each other. It was as if they were maintaining a mysterious balance. The 2 of them were swept into a hazy world by a mysterious force. There was nothing extra here, only pure black and white. Pure and simple, but so complicated. There was an indescribable and terrifying power contained within. Mu Yu was a little surprised. The world in the netherworld grass was like this. The netherworld grass was used to supervise the balance of the entire world, and the yin-yang aura in the 8 trigrams array seemed to be describing this mysterious balance. He tried to understand the balance of this world, but that concept was ethereal and unrestrained. He could not touch it. Chang Tianqing's face turned green again. After he combined the array rune stone with the array hall, the scene of him taking over the array hall did not appear. He and Mu Yu came to this black and white world together. The 2 of them seemed to be bound by some kind of power, and neither of them could hurt the other. After the array rune stone and the array hall are combined, they will fuse into a supreme treasure called the primal yin-yang. There can only be one owner of the primal yin-yang, and the 2 of us are in the 8 trigrams array. It's impossible for you to monopolize it, Mu Yu said calmly. Back then, The Array Rune sect was separated because the two sect masters were unwilling to let the other be the owner of the primal yin-yang alone. Therefore, the primal yin-yang was split into two and kept separately. Chang Tianxing and Mu Yu were in the 8 trigrams array at the same time, so the primal yin-yang could not recognize them as its owner. They were directly brought to this hazy world. Chang Tianxing looked at the black and white aura around him and recalled that there was indeed such a secret. He said disapprovingly, "The primal yin-yang brought us to this hazy world to test the two of us. It wants to see which one of us is qualified to be the owner of the primal yin-yang. Do you think you can compete with me?" Although the Array Rune sect and the Array Rune sect's techniques were different, they were both based on the 8 trigrams. Chang Tianxing was the sect master of the Talisman sect, so he was naturally very proficient in the 8 trigrams. He had been immersed in the Talisman Dao his whole life, and his understanding of the Talisman Dao had reached a rather high level. He did not believe that he could not be compared to a young man who had just started learning about arrays. "It's not up to you to decide whether I can compete with you or not." Mu Yu raised his head. The yin-yang aura around him had already begun to ripple. Mu Yu was very familiar with the yin-yang aura. He had encountered the yin-yang aura countless times. Not to mention that he had the yin-yang ability of life and death in the blink of an eye. He had once discovered a rather powerful yin-yang aura in the Netherworld herb. It had almost caused him to be trapped in it and unable to extricate himself. Now that he was in the Array Rune sect, the combination of the Array Rune Stone and the Array Hall had produced the primal yin-yang. He had to face the yin-yang aura again. He always felt that everything in the world could not escape from the yin-yang. Yin-yang controlled a person's life and death. If the balance between yin and yang was destroyed, something extremely terrifying would happen. It was just like how a small netherworld herb could destroy an entire world. It was extremely important to maintain the balance between yin and yang. 2 auras, one black and one white, began to drift in the air. They were like the 2 most primitive brute forces in the primal chaos. They gradually transformed all the laws in the world. Regardless of whether it was Dharma arts, array runes, talisman arts, sword arts, or spiritual energy, everything in the world could not escape the control of the primal yin-yang. They represented the world. Then, mysterious golden inscriptions began to appear from the yin-yang aura. These inscriptions were rather difficult to understand. They were an extremely ancient and primitive language that the two of them had never seen before. Countless inscriptions separated and revolved around the two of them. They floated up and down and rippled in various exquisite ways. Mu Yu sat down cross-legged. With a thought, 81 inscriptions revolve around the two of them. The two of them instantly understood that these inscriptions needed to be comprehended by them. Whoever could master all the inscriptions would be recognized by the primal yin-yang and become a master of the primal yin-yang. Chang Tianxing had already begun to perform Dharma arts and began to study these difficult inscriptions. His talent was indeed very high. Although he could not understand these inscriptions, he relied on his study of Talisman Dao. In less than a moment, an inscription turned into a shadow and merged into his body. This old fox really can't be underestimated. Mu Yu did not dare to neglect and began to study these inscriptions. The shape of each inscription was very strange. It was impossible to interpret it in a normal way. However, he always felt that he had seen these inscriptions somewhere before and had some vague impressions. Ding! Another inscription split into a shadow and merged into Chang Tianxing's body. At this moment, Mu Yu was still pondering the meaning of the inscription. He had not even comprehended the first inscription. Mu Yu frowned. The meaning of these inscriptions gave people the feeling that they were right in front of them. However, when they reached out to touch them, they could not touch them. Chapter 484. Everyone was surrounded by 80 mysterious inscriptions. If one wanted to become the sect master of the Formation Talisman sect, one needed to become the master of the Chaos Yin and Yang and successfully integrate these 81 inscriptions. In a short moment, 9 inscriptions had transformed into phantoms and integrated into Chang Tianqing's body. Muyu hadn't comprehended any of them yet. He couldn't remember where he had seen these inscriptions before. To understand the inscriptions, one must understand the meaning of these inscriptions. Time passed little by little. The inscriptions were still flickering in the air. Muyu still hadn't comprehended any inscriptions, but Chang Tianqing had already comprehended nearly half of them. He seemed to know how to look at these inscriptions and also knew how to study them with his own talisman Dao. Just as Chang Tianqing said, in terms of qualifications and experience, Muyu couldn't compare to Chang Tianqing at all. After all, Chang Tianqing was the sect master of the talisman sect. His experience and knowledge of the talisman Dao were far more than Muyu. However, at this moment, Muyu's attention wasn't on the inscriptions at all. Instead, he was immersed in a memory. At that time, he was still in the Withered Tree Valley. He was grounded by Withered Tree and had to memorize the poison scripture every day. At that time, Withered Tree taught Muyu about all kinds of herbs and poisons in order to let him be able to cope with the competition of the Pill Cauldron sect. But sometimes, he would also teach Muyu some knowledge of Xian formations. At that time, Muyu always liked to mess around with Xian formations and then ask Withered Tree some miscellaneous things. Sometimes, Withered Tree would slowly explain to him when he was in a good mood. Among them, Muyu remembered that Withered Tree had explained about the ancient inscriptions. At that time, he had drawn a few inscriptions that were difficult to understand. They were different from the inscriptions in front of him, but the shape was similar. Withered Tree once said that the ancient inscriptions didn't have a specific meaning, but they were all related to each other. You had to look at it in your own way. When you think it means what it means what it means. At that time, Muyu curled his lips and felt that Withered Tree was fooling him. How could a language mean what you think it means? Wouldn't that mean that he was the ancestor of words? However, when Muyu looked at the 81 inscriptions around him, his heart began to clear up. Ancient inscriptions were interconnected. When you thought it meant something, it meant something. Muyu's eyes began to flash with a strange light. The inscriptions around him seemed to come alive, flashing back and forth in his eyes. He tried to analyze the 81 inscriptions using the dead tree's words. If he treated one of the inscriptions as a human, then similar to the human, there should be some inscriptions that represented demonic beasts, some represented demonic beasts, and some represented the Yumming demon clan. If he interpreted one of the inscriptions as a poplar tree, then there must be other inscriptions that represented pine, willow. These inscriptions were like a category. If one wanted to comprehend them, one had to identify all the categories. The problem Muyu was facing now was that if he treated one of the inscriptions as a human, he didn't know which one to treat as a demon or Yumon. These inscriptions were all interconnected. As long as he could find the connection between these inscriptions, then this problem would be easily solved. Chang Tianqing clearly knew how to decipher these inscriptions from the ancient books left behind by the sect's predecessors. After determining the types of inscriptions within a range, he began to break them down. Soon, he had identified 79 inscriptions, but Muyu still couldn't identify a single one. Formation Heavenly Dao said that one had to rely on themselves when it came to understanding the Formation Dao. Only what one understood was the most suitable path for oneself. Therefore, Formation Heavenly Dao never told Zhuge, Shaosheng, and the others how to do 8 steps to heaven. It also didn't tell anyone how to pass the 8th hexagram of the formation door. Only the Formation Dao that one comprehended belonged to oneself. Time seemed to stop in the chaos of yin and yang, but it also seemed to be flowing quickly. 10,000 years passed in a blink of an eye. However, at a certain point, time seemed to be stuck in place and didn't move. There were only 2 inscriptions left that Chang Tianqing didn't understand. These last 2 inscriptions had Chang Tianqing stuck. He couldn't think of what else he could understand from these 2 inscriptions. His expression showed a hint of frustration as his brows furrowed tightly. Muyu's eyes were still flashing with these inscriptions. In his eyes, these inscriptions didn't just have some meaning, they were also very orderly. However, this pattern was something that Muyu couldn't grasp. He only lacked a line that could string everything together. Chang Tianqing's face suddenly lit up with joy. The 80th inscription once again transformed into a phantom and entered his body. For him, as long as he understood the last inscription, he could successfully master these inscriptions. Chang Tianqing's heart couldn't help but tremble. He was only one step away from success. Muyu still didn't have any inscription shadows around him. However, his expression was very relaxed, as if he was immersed in some fantasy. He enjoyed this feeling very much. "All right, I understand now." Muyu nodded thoughtfully. The inscriptions in front of him suddenly became clear, as if a layer of hazy veil had been pulled apart. He had comprehended it. However, Chang Tianqing had already stood up. Without waiting for Muyu to do anything, the 81st inscription successfully merged into his body. Chang Tianqing actually finished comprehending the inscriptions before Muyu. "Ha! The chaos of yin and yang finally belongs to me." Chang Tianqing looked at the 81 inscriptions around him. The colors of these inscriptions were much dimmer than before. He had indeed succeeded. He had merged all the inscriptions into his body. However, Muyu still hadn't merged any inscriptions. Clearly, he had obtained the advantage in this test. The black and white energies began to rotate. Chang Tianqing gradually felt something. His face revealed endless ecstasy. The chaos of yin and yang had recognized him as its master. "I will eventually become the sect master of the Array Talisman sect." Chang Tianqing felt the increasingly majestic power in his body. The fanaticism in his eyes was extremely strong. The chaos energy was the yin and yang energy formed after the Array Hall and the Array Talisman Stone fused. It symbolized the highest mystery of spells. With the chaos of yin and yang, one could control all Array and Talisman techniques and become the sect master of the Array Talisman sect. He had planned for so many years just for this moment. For this moment, many people in his sect had sacrificed their lives. Even his favorite disciple had been killed by Muyu. He had been holding back for a long time. Now, all he had to do was wait for the chaos of yin and yang energy to completely merge into his body. Then he would kill all the people of the Array Talisman sect and restore the glory of the Array Talisman sect. The sect master of the Array Talisman sect controlled the most profound array and talisman techniques in the world. When that time came, even the Stargate wouldn't dare to do anything to him. Buzz! The black and white energies began to tremble gradually and wrapped around Chang Tianqing. They transformed the spiritual energy in his body and integrated all the talisman techniques he had learned. Then, they condensed and transformed into the purest chaos yin and yang energy, helping him to understand the true essence of spells. All the yin and yang energy had been injected into Chang Tianqing's body. He was overjoyed. He had finally succeeded. The majestic power of the Array Hall was completely under his control. He understood the operating rules of the stairway to heaven and saw the countless array formations of the Array Talisman sect. These array formations were all under his control. The control of the Array Hall had also been transferred from Muyu to Chang Tianqing. Through the Array Hall, he could see the entire situation in the Array Talisman sect. The people of the Array Talisman sect and the Array Talisman sect were all fighting fiercely. He saw Zhou Jinglin being defeated by Master Lu and Mu Qinghong. He also saw Zhuge Shaoxing killing another Khanate talisman master. Chang Tianqing was furious. He was now the master of all the Array Talisman Masters and Array Talisman Masters. Only he had the right to decide the lives of the Array Talisman Masters and Array Talisman Masters. "I've already become the true master of the Array Talisman sect. Are you still not going to surrender?" Chang Tianqing's voice was like a great bell that resounded through the entire Array Talisman sect and reached everyone's ears. Regardless of whether it was the disciples of the Array Talisman sect or the Array Talisman sect, they were all terrified when they heard Chang Tianqing's voice. That godlike voice made them tremble from the bottom of their hearts. Their array and talisman techniques seemed to have stopped and could no longer be used. In the face of the yin and yang chaos, The Array Talisman Masters and Array Talisman Master spells were all under Chang Tianqing's control. Everyone stopped and looked towards the sacred Array Hall in the distance. That was the source of the voice. Chang Tianqing took a step forward and appeared above the Array Hall from the world of chaos. His body flickered with alternating black and white ripples and exuded a dignified aura. It was reflected in the hearts of every Array Talisman Master and Array Talisman Master. Everyone could not help but want to bow down and worship Chang Tianqing, who was above the Array Hall. With the yin and yang chaos, Chang Tianqing had become a god in the hearts of the Array Talisman Masters and Array Talisman Masters. The Sect Master has successfully seized the Array Hall. Long live the Sect Master! All the Talisman Sect disciples cheered. Chang Tianqing had obtained the inheritance of the yin and yang chaos. As the orthodox disciples of the Talisman Sect, they would naturally receive great benefits. The Array Talisman Sect's destruction was unstoppable. From now on, only talisman techniques reigned supreme in the world. Chang Tianqing waved his hand and 100,000 rays of light shot into the sky from the Array Hall. They transformed into mysterious ripples and landed on every talisman master from the Talisman Sect like a sweet rain from the heavens. All the talisman masters felt the majestic aura on their bodies. The talisman techniques that had been suppressed in their bodies were released and even showed signs of becoming stronger. Every talisman master could feel the surging talisman patterns in their bodies. It was unstoppable, and they could not wait to release it. They were overjoyed, and countless talisman techniques were shot towards all the Array Talisman Sect disciples. The Array Talisman Sect disciples wanted to use their Array techniques to resist the attacks, but they could not use the Array techniques in their bodies. Bang! Bang! All the Array Talisman Sect disciples were struck by the Talisman Sect's talisman techniques and were sent flying before crashing heavily onto the ground. Every Array Talisman Master's blood splattered in the air and dyed the ground of the Array Talisman Sect red. The Array Talisman Masters looked at the chaotic god in the sky above the Array Hall in horror. Their hearts had completely sunk to the bottom of the valley. Fengmu has failed. Zhuge Xiaoxing's face was ashen. He had also been struck by the talisman techniques of the two talisman masters in front of him. He crashed heavily into a huge rock and fell into a crack in the huge rock. He was battered and exhausted, and there were already shocking wounds on his body. Chang Tianqing's voice was like the ancestor of spells in the vast primordial era. As the sect master of the Array Talisman Sect, Zhuge Xiaoxing actually wanted to kneel in front of this voice. Zhuge Xiaoxing, kneel in front of me and submit to me. Then I will spare your life. Chang Tianqing's arrogant laughter echoed from the sky above the Array Hall. His voice was like rolling heavenly thunder that shook everyone's hearts, making them unable to think of resisting. Chapter 485. All the Array Masters looked at Chang Tianqing in the sky above the Array Hall with fear and trepidation. They knew that the Array faction might really become history. Chang Tianqing looked down at everyone with lofty sentiments. In order to seize the Array faction's Array Hall, he had worked hard for so many years. Now that he had finally become the new faction leader of the Array Talisman Sect, all his sacrifices had paid off. Talisman technique is the greatest technique in the world. All talisman masters should be respected. I will build a new world of talisman techniques. I control the chaos of yin and yang and become the faction leader of the Array Talisman Sect. However, I think that it's time for the Array Talisman Sect to change its name. Chang Tianqing's gaze swept across Zhuge Xiaoxing's face. Zhuge Xiaoxing clenched his fists. He couldn't resist that terrifying aura. Talisman masters have always been the strongest cultivators in the Third Continent. As for Array masters, they can't withstand the passage of time and should be eliminated by history. From today onwards, there will be no more Array Talisman Sect, Array faction, or Talisman faction. The cultivation world will no longer be dominated by the 8 factions. The Third Continent will welcome the 9th faction, the talisman sect. Chang Tianqing's voice was like a rolling river and deafening thunder. The talisman master's eyes were filled with fanaticism. Greetings to the faction leader of the talisman sect. Zhou Jinglin bowed respectfully and shouted loudly. Greetings to the faction leader of the talisman sect. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. All the talisman masters knelt down excitedly to welcome their new faction leader. Only the array masters of the array faction remained standing. They looked at Chang Tianqing, who was like an emperor in the sky above the array hall, with fear. Their array skills made them feel reverence for Chang Tianqing. However, they gritted their teeth and didn't choose to kneel. Kneeling meant that there would be no more array faction in the world. The only people who stood with the array masters were the people from the Stargate. There were 2 elders from the Stargate who were in the form synthesis stage who also participated in the battle for the array talisman. They were Tian Guanxi and Tian Haihua. Chang Tianqing, I'm afraid it's not up to you to decide who will be the faction leader of the array talisman sect. Tian Haihua said gloomily. The people from Stargate helped the talisman sect to attack the array sect. However, they didn't contribute much because the array sect was already prepared. They ordered everyone to retreat from the beginning. Later, when Muyu sent out all the array masters to fight the talisman masters to the death, they had the opportunity to make a move. However, before they could kill many array masters, Chang Tianqing had already seized the chaos yin and yang, controlling everything. Chang Tianqing's figure disappeared on the spot, and when he reappeared, he was already in front of Tian Haihua. He looked at Tian Haihua playfully and said indifferently, Who do you think you are in front of me? Chang Tianqing, how dare you speak to me like that? Tian Haihua was furious. However, the terrifying black and white runes instantly pressed down on all of the Sky Star Sect's disciples. Even Tian Haihua and Tian Guanxi's expressions changed greatly. The black and white runes turned into a huge cage, trapping all of the Sky Star Sect's disciples in an instant. I'm now the sect leader of the Talisman sect. I'm on the same level as the sect leader of Stargate. While I'm speaking, you have no right to interrupt. Chang Tianqing said indifferently. Tian Haihua wanted to refute, but Tian Guanxi stopped him. Then, I'll congratulate the sect leader of the Talisman sect first. Tian Guanxi sneered. Chang Tianqing snorted. You people from Stargate are too overbearing. Do you really think that I, Chang Tianqing, will be willing to listen to your orders? I'll deal with the people from the Array sect first. I'll settle the score with you later. The black and white runes surged out again. The 17 innate realm Array masters, led by Zhuge Shaosheng, were suddenly caught in the air by a majestic spiritual energy. They didn't even have the chance to resist. The 19 innate realm Array masters of the Array sect lost 2 in this battle. Among the 17 connate Array masters of the Array sect, including Zhuge Shaosheng, there were a total of 5 at the body integration stage. However, they were completely powerless in front of Chang Tianqing. The chaotic aura on Chang Tianqing's body made them unable to use the array techniques in their bodies. If they couldn't use the array techniques, the array masters were even worse than ordinary self-cultivators. The 17 of you are really tenacious. Chang Tianqing looked at Zhuge Shaosheng and the others with a victorious smile on his face. Zhuge Shaosheng clenched his fists. He didn't expect Chang Tianqing to take control of the situation in the end and trample them under his feet. At this time, the 17 innate realm array masters were seriously injured. Each of them was injured by the talisman technique. Blood soaked their clothes. Their clothes were tattered and burned by the talisman technique. Where's Fengmu? Zhuge Shaosheng gritted his teeth and asked. The chaotic yin and yang in Chang Tianqing's body made him feel despair. However, he was still unwilling. The founder of the Heavenly Array sect once told him that Fengmu could help save the Array sect. But now, Chang Tianqing had obtained the chaotic yin and yang. I killed him, Chang Tianqing said indifferently. No, Master Lu couldn't help but shout. He looked at Chang Tianqing with fear, but he still couldn't believe it. When he was in the Array Hall, just now, he almost became the center of the Array sect. But Feng Mu controlled everything in the Array Hall and played everyone. Master Lu thought that with Feng Mu's talent, he could use the Array Hall to defeat Chang Tianqing. But everything in front of him made him fall into despair. Only death awaits those who overestimate themselves. Chang Tianqing laughed. Then he glanced at all the innate realm array masters, and his eyes fell on Zhuge Xiaosheng again. Zhuge Xiaosheng, to be honest, I admire your array techniques. Today's battle of talismans caused heavy losses. Many people didn't need to die, but because of our different ideals, they all bled. I'm a person who loves talents. As long as you kneel at my feet and swear loyalty to me with all the array masters of your array sect, I'll spare your life. How about it? Chang Tianqing smiled. Spare my life? Zhuge Xiaosheng looked at Chang Tianqing coldly. That's right. You're a very powerful array master. You shouldn't die so cowardly. As long as you follow me and help me bring the talisman school to greater heights, I won't kill you. I can also let you have a status that's second only to me. How about it? Chang Tianqing said slowly. Now, more than 40 innate talisman masters came to attack the array sect and lost more than 20 of them. Although the 17 innate realm array masters of the array sect were seriously injured, only 2 of them died. It was enough to show how strong the innate realm array masters of the array sect were. Chang Tianqing ambitiously wanted to bring the talisman school to the status of the array talisman school in the past and become a 9th school in the cultivation world. It was impossible to achieve with only the remaining innate talisman masters. Zhuge Xiaosheng's array techniques were very powerful. If he could subdue Zhuge, Xiaosheng, and others, it would be of great help to his plan to revitalize the talisman school. Zhuge Xiaosheng looked at the 2 dead innate realm array masters on ground. These 2 innate realm array masters were loyal to the array sect. In order to repel the invaders, they fought until the last moment. In the end, they even used their own blood as the array foundation and burned their lives. Each of them took 3 innate talisman masters down with them. They spilled blood for the array sect, but Chang Tianqing actually wanted Zhuge Xiaosheng to kneel in front of him. Every array master of the array sect would rather die standing than live kneeling. Chang Tianqing, you can kill me or cut me up as you wish. But if you want me, Zhuge Xiaosheng, to kneel in front of you, you're dreaming. Zhuge Xiaosheng's face was resolute. Do all of you have the same idea? Chang Tianqing looked at the 17 innate realm array masters, and his eyes gradually turned cold. We're from the array sect. We won't be the slaves of your talisman school. Master Lu roared. All of the innate realm array masters expressed their stance without fear of death. They understood that once they knelt, they would never be able to stand up again. The people of the talisman school looked down on array masters. Even the spies sent by them were casually thrown away like garbage. How could they treat array masters well? Once Chang Tianqing gained a foothold in the cultivation world and established his position, the next ones to take action would be these array masters. Chang Tianqing just sneered. Then he searched the crowd and saw Mu Qinghong's figure. He grabbed Mu Qinghong with his big hand and pulled him to his front. Mu Guang, you're my favorite disciple. Unfortunately, you've done something wrong. A trace of regret appeared on Chang Tianqing's face. My name is Mu Qinghong, Mu Qinghong said calmly. Chang Tianqing was not angry. He said, You're originally from the talisman school. I know that you were young and impulsive and did something wrong. I can let the matter of you killing Mo Zimming go, because your talent is higher than Mo Zimming's, and your ranking on the Supreme Immortal list is higher than Mo Zimming's. Now that Mo Zimming and Ling Zheng are dead, as long as you want to come back, I'll forgive your mistake. For a sect, there had to be someone among the younger generation who could take on the role of the sect. In the past, the talisman school relied on Ling Zheng and Mo Zimming. However, now that Ling Zheng and Mo Zimming had lost their lives due to carelessness, no one else could replace them. However, Mu Qinghong was ranked 70th on the Supreme Immortal list. His temperament and strength were appreciated by Chang Tianqing. A sect having a supreme immortal was something worth bragging about. Even the Pill Cauldron School, which had a high status in the cultivation world, valued Mu Yu's supreme immortal status very much. Chang Tianqing knew that if the Talisman School did not have a supreme immortal who could take the stage in the future, it would be questioned by others. If Chang Tianqing wanted to develop the Talisman School, he had to consider everything. However, Mu Chenghong shook his head gently. I'm a disciple of the Erase sect. I was, am, and will be even after death. Chang Tianqing's face twitched slightly. He realized that the people of the Erase sect did not want to lower their heads in front of him, the sect master who possessed the primal yin and yang. This was a great challenge to his dignity as the new sect master. He glanced at all the disciples of the Erase sect and decided not to waste any more time. Only by killing the chicken to warn the monkey would these people know who was in charge now. All right, since all of you are so stubborn, then I won't be polite. Those who obey me will prosper, and those who oppose me will perish. It seems that I need to kill someone to establish my dignity. The slaughter will start with you, Zhuge Xiaosheng. Chang Tianqing's voice was like rolling thunder. Then, endless killing intent enveloped Zhuge Xiaosheng. Zhuge Xiaosheng gritted his teeth. The primal yin and yang on Chang Tianqing's body was pulling on the formation technique in Zhuge Xiaosheng's body. The formation runes actually began to expand from the inside out, wanting to burst Zhuge Xiaosheng's body. The Erase sect is finished. All the disciples of the Erase sect saw that their sect master was captured by Chang Tianqing without any resistance. The terrifying formation runes covered Zhuge Xiaosheng's body. They all knew that their sect master was about to be forced to self-destruct. Despair spread once again. All the disciples of the Erase sect could not bear to look at Zhuge Xiaosheng. Even their sect master was captured at this moment. How could they still have the determination to resist? However, at this moment, a clear voice suddenly sounded. Chang Tianqing, shouldn't the slaughter start with me? Mu Yu's voice was very calm, as if it came from the boundless void. It was impossible to determine the depth of his voice. His aura was also not as strong as Chang Tianqing's. However, he seemed very relaxed, as if he was looking at something very ordinary. Chapter 486. Chang Tianqing suddenly turned his head. His gaze seemed to have passed through the vast void and came to the chaotic world. He saw Mu Yu, who was still surrounded by the 81 inscriptions. He looked at Mu Yu as if he was looking at a dead man and laughed mockingly. I almost forgot that there is still a pitiful worm like you here. Yes, it's really quite pitiful. Mu Yu shrugged and stood up. He still hadn't comprehended any of the 81 inscriptions, but he didn't panic at all when facing Chang Tianqing, who had become the master of yin and yang in the chaotic world. Chang Tianqing looked at Mu Yu's calm face and felt very unhappy. Everything just now was led by the nose by this young man. But now he had clearly become the master of yin and yang in the chaotic world, the new master of all the array masters and talisman masters in the world. Why was this guy still so self-righteous? I am now the master of yin and yang in the chaotic world. You don't deserve to stay in this place. Chang Tianqing fiercely stretched out his hand. The surrounding black and white qi suddenly surged violently, and then a black python appeared again. It opened its bloody mouth and pounced on Mu Yu. Let's see how you dodge this time. Mu Yu just looked at the black python indifferently. This time he didn't even bother to stretch out his finger. He just looked at Chang Tianqing leisurely. Just as the black python was about to bite Mu Yu, the inscriptions around Mu Yu seemed to come to life. They moved slightly, and a golden light spread out and bounced the black python away. What's going on? I am now the master of yin and yang in the chaotic world. Why are these inscriptions protecting you? Chang Tianqing's expression changed slightly. He carefully felt the connection with the chaotic world and found that he could still control it. Only then did he feel slightly relieved. Do you know what these black and white qi represent? Mu Yu looked at Chang Tianqing calmly. Without waiting for Chang Tianqing to speak, he had already answered. The black and white auras represent the balance of life and death. Everything in the world is mutually reinforcing and restraining each other. Because there is balance and mutual restraint, life can continue. Black and white represent Tai Chi, Yin, and Yang. Tai Chi gives birth to Yin and Yang. Yin and Yang give birth to the four symbols, and the four symbols give birth to the 8 trigrams. The 8 trigrams form the most basic spells of us array masters and talisman masters. After you're recognized as the master of the chaos Yin and Yang, you can control all the people who use the 8 trigram spells. But you have forgotten one thing. Balance is the most powerful force in the world. Oomph. How laughable. I don't know anything about balance, but I know that I have the primal chaos Yin and Yang, and I have everything. All array masters and talisman masters must listen to my orders. Those who disobey will be killed without mercy. Chang Tianqing sneered. Then why don't you try again and see if you can kill the sect master of my array faction? Mu Yu smiled. Chang Tianqing's expression changed slightly. He once again focused his attention on Zhuge Xiaosheng. He used the primal chaos Yin and Yang to guide the array patterns in Zhuge Xiaosheng's body. He wanted to kill Zhuge Xiaosheng, but an inexplicable spiritual energy suddenly surged out of Zhuge Xiaosheng's body and bounced his primal chaos Yin and Yang away. Zhuge Xiaosheng was shocked. He didn't understand where the spiritual energy in his body came from. But what shocked him even more was that he realized that the stagnant array technique in his body had begun to be unsealed. Not only him, but all the disciples of the array faction also realized that their array technique had been restored, but the disciples of the talisman faction also felt that their talisman techniques had been imprisoned. How is this possible? How can you also control the primal chaos Yin and Yang? Chang Tianqing was shocked and furious, but he was even more shocked when he realized that his control over the primal chaos Yin and Yang in his body was gradually disappearing. The primal chaos Yin and Yang had begun to break free from his control. How dare you? Stop. I am the master of the primal chaos Yin and Yang. Chang Tianqing roared angrily. However, it was too late. He had already lost his sense of the primal chaos Yin and Yang. The powerful energy of heaven and earth had disappeared from his body and was gradually transferred to Mu Yu's body. Do you think that the way to control the primal chaos Yin and Yang is to understand these 81 inscriptions? Mu Yu asked. Is that not the case? Chang Tianqing said angrily. You are wrong. You have understood the 81 inscriptions as a category, but there are so many things in the world. Yin and Yang include countless objects. How can you use a small category to replace everything? If you want to completely control the primal chaos Yin and Yang, you need to understand what balance is. Balance doesn't only exist in all things, it also exists in everyone's heart. Only when one's heart is balanced can one become the true master of the primal chaos Yin and Yang. Unfortunately, you will never understand this principle. Mu Yu shook his head. Mu Yu now understood why his master had told him from the beginning that there was no right or wrong in doing things. It all depended on one's heart. As long as one was worthy of one's heart, one's actions could be right. This was a kind of balance. The great Tao was simple. Balance didn't need to care about how others looked at it. It needed to have a clear conscience. Once you did something against your heart, balance would no longer exist. Chang Tianqing's heart was filled with greed and desire for power. Many of the things he did were against his conscience. Therefore, when Mu Yu used a balanced mentality to communicate with the primal chaos Yin and Yang, the primal chaos Yin and Yang chose him without hesitation. Chang Tianqing did use his own way of understanding to temporarily control the primal chaos Yin and Yang ahead of Mu Yu. However, Mu Yu had comprehended a deeper aspect of the primal chaos Yin and Yang. That was the most correct way to control the primal chaos Yin and Yang. Mu Yu had already understood the 81 inscriptions in his own way. However, he didn't need to comprehend them one by one like Chang Tianqing. In his heart, the 81 inscriptions were a world. one could transform them into anything. They restricted and developed each other. This was a kind of balance. Buzz. The surrounding black and white energy gradually disappeared. Mu Yu and Chang Tianqing reappeared in the 8 trigrams array. Even Chang Tianqing didn't expect this. It was a sudden force that pulled him in from outside the array hall. At this moment, Chang Tianqing's face was filled with deep resentment and unwillingness. He had clearly become the new master of the primal chaos yin and yang. However, for some reason, Mu Yu directly took away his ability. His heart was filled with resentment. He glared at Mu Yu, his expression twisted to the extreme. Return the primal chaos yin and yang to me. Chang Tianqing rushed towards Mu Yu. However, the 8 trigrams array released a majestic force that instantly swept him away. Blood flowed out of the bloody hole in his chest again. All the talisman techniques in his body were completely suppressed. He no longer had the ability to fight with Mu Yu. I'm a master of the primal chaos yin and yang. Chang Tianqing struggled and crawled towards Mu Yu like a pitiful worm. However, without the protection of the primal chaos yin and yang, the wounds caused by Zhou Jinglin's sneak attack tore open. He crawled halfway and couldn't crawl any further. Like you said at the beginning, you are indeed very pitiful. Mu Yu shook his head. A trace of primal chaos appeared in his hand. Then, he seemed to have thought of something. The extreme immortal symbol on his right wrist was shattered by him and disappeared. I'm now the master of the Array Talisman sect. You are not qualified to mark my identity. Mu Yu watched as the extreme immortal symbol disappeared. He already had other thoughts about the 3-layered palace. Mu Yu raised his head and looked at the white light outside the array hall. Bai Jie was still watching everything. Even when Chang Tianqing revealed his ambition, he didn't stop him. He was invisible to everyone except Mu Yu. This is my territory. Get out. Borrowing the power of the array hall, the primal chaos yin and yang in Mu Yu's body turned into powerful array runes. They flew up from the array hall and attacked Bai Jie. Bai Jie couldn't see Mu Yu, but he could feel Mu Yu's power. The array hall's power was terrifying. Once it was used correctly, it could completely block Bai Jie outside the sect. Just like how Array Heavenly Tao used powerful array techniques to block Bai Jie, Mu Yu was taught by Array Heavenly Tao. He also knew how to use the array hall against Bai Jie. I really can't underestimate you. Array Heavenly Tao. Bai Jie turned towards the Forbidden Forest. Array Heavenly Tao's array techniques were on par with his. If it wasn't for Array Heavenly Tao's guidance, Mu Yu wouldn't be able to fight against him. Bai Jie didn't attack. His body flashed and disappeared from the array sect. His goal was achieved. Array Heavenly Tao was dead, and he had half of the control over the immortal confining prison. Mu Yu didn't stop Bai Jie from leaving. He couldn't stop him anyway. Without the array hall's help, he wouldn't be able to defeat Bai Jie. He grabbed Chang Tianqing's collar and turned to appear in front of everyone. Bang! A moment ago, Chang Tianqing, who had claimed to be the next sect master of the Talisman sect and wanted to kill all the array masters, was now lying on the ground like a dead dog. Every Talisman sect disciple was dumbfounded by the impact. Their sect master was finished just like that? Then all that's left is to deal with you people from Talisman sect. Sect master, you can do whatever you want with them. Their talisman techniques can no longer be used. Mu Yu's voice spread across the entire array sect. Zhuge Shaoxing stood up and gazed at Mu Yu with an excited expression. After that, he glanced at all the members of the Talisman sect that were extremely terrified, and then he waved his hand while a trace of resolution appeared in his eyes. He said in a grim voice, "Kill! Kill!" All the Array faction disciples had been suppressed by Chang Tianqing's terrifying aura earlier and had been injured by the Talisman sect disciples. Now that the roles had been reversed, an endless amount of resentment had accumulated in their hearts as they roared and pounced towards the Talisman sect members opposite them. Since the Talisman sect dared to behave atrociously in their territory, they should pay the price. Array skills surged and rays of light shot out. All the Talisman sect disciples were sent flying. The disciples of Array's sect didn't show any mercy. They used all kinds of killing arrays to end the evil lives of these invaders. Then I'll have to treat you people from Stargate well. Since Muyu controlled the Array Hall, he also controlled the countless array formations of the Array faction. His powerful chaotic yin-yang was only effective against Array Masters and Talisman Masters. It had no effect on the Stargate disciples. After all, he didn't have the same cultivation as Chang Tiansheng and couldn't trap Tian Haihua and Tian Guanxi in an instant. The Stargate disciples had already broken free from the rune cage after Chang Tiansheng was defeated by Muyu. Stargate disciples retreat. Tian Haihua didn't dare to continue fighting when he saw the menacing Array Masters. They all knew that Array Masters were very powerful. They could explode with great power in a short period of time. Innate Array Masters had a lot of Array foundations and didn't have the disadvantage of lacking a backup. In addition, there were 5 Array Masters in Array Sect. Even though all of them were seriously injured, he didn't dare to be careless. After all, the person who controlled the chaotic yin-yang was a variable. Now that the Talisman Sect disciples were defeated, the 2 of them who were in the body integration stage were no match for them. You want to leave? Sect leader, do me a favor. Muyu used the chaotic yin-yang to forcefully pull Zhuge Shaosheng to his side. Even though he controlled the chaotic yin-yang, he wasn't very powerful. Apart from being able to intimidate Array Masters and Talisman Masters, his cultivation was still only in the out-of-body stage. In the past, Deadwood Daddy used the Array technique to trigger a 7th-order explosive pill and almost killed Tian Bushi. At that time, Deadwood Daddy's cultivation was not high enough, so he used his own life as the Array Foundation to activate the terrifying Array technique. Muyu didn't need to use his life. If he wanted the 7th-order explosive pill to display its true power, he only needed to rely on Zhuge Shaosheng, who was in the body integration stage. Muyu drew a complicated array pattern in his hand. 10 7th-order explosive pills were transformed by Muyu into the array pattern. Zhuge Shaosheng was slightly surprised when he saw the explosive pills fuse with the array pattern. He had never seen such a mysterious array. Explosive pills and array techniques were 2 different concepts. How could one use explosive pills to activate array techniques? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.